Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku took All Might's place after his fall? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku could feel the wind whistling in his ears. The world was just a small pin to him as he flew past the clouds. The fluffy structures in the sky surrounded him as he spun in the air. His cape billowed in the air before hearing a mighty laugh. Young Midoriya. It was All Might in all of his glory. Bright blue eyes rivaling the sun and the bright costume that always brought a smile to his face. Izuku smiled as they heard an explosion below them. A giant sludge creature was gobbling cars, spitting them out, and laughing maniacally. Evil never rests. Then let's make sure to bring them down with a smile on our face, Izuku said. All Might smiled at that. The two twirled down. Detroit. Dash. A roll of paper smacked Izuku on the head. The 26-year-old almost fell on the ground. A light chuckle echoed through the empty room. It was a dream, of course it was. Izuku Midoriya wasn't a sidekick of All Might. The greatest hero in history fell when he was just a boy. Dreams of heroism quelled to reality and only came back in small waves of nostalgia. Nowadays, he was a humble quirk analyst. Well, formerly since he reunited with an old college friend. Dreaming about All Might again, Izuku? No, Melissa. He looked up to see his blonde friend standing over him. Melissa Shield was his former lab partner during his college days. She was a former resident of Island before a controversy with her father brought her to mainland Japan for college. Alone, the friendship between the two was born when they bonded over a similar interest over All Might. Izuku was the biggest All Might fan and Melissa had a former connection to the old hero. Izuku never got over how she handled his fanaticism. It really should have turned her against him. Although one thing that they shared in common was being quirkless. With no ability to call their own, the two formed an unshakable bond to let their other talents shine through. They didn't have the power to be smart or to help people. They would rise despite the circumstances. Even when they separated after college, the two would always talk. It led to a point where she got Izuku a job for her new startup, Shield Industries. Are you getting comfortable in your new lab? It's wonderful, Mel. The tech is unmatched to anything on the market. He rolled around in his chair and stood up. Are you sure the tech is old? I've never seen such advanced junk. It was my father's, and if it's anything, he had an eye for innovation, Melissa said while picking up a piece of paper. There was a somber smile on her face. Izuku put a hand on her shoulder. We'll make the best of it. Trust me. Melissa sighed and rolled his hand off. I do. Don't worry. Now why don't we get to work? Plus Ultra. Plus Ultra. Izuku said. The two started their cleanup of the place. Their new place of business was a research wing built to study the newest trend of quirks for upcoming hero students. Izuku would do the research and Melissa would make the prototype. With their combined geniuses, they'll be able to have the companies buy these inventions and use for their consumers. Their research and results would help bring focus to what support companies need to make for items and costumes. It would only be the beginning. Support items are just the beginning, Izuku. Soon we'll be able to work in the medical field and use that healing chamber idea. I even brought in some old blueprints from senior year that could expand ideas in exploration. You got files on the hero earjack? Yeah, I do. I think we'll need to request some heroes to do some trial runs. I think we can. Izuku stopped when he found an old blueprint. A gauntlet design and built similar to her pogo stick. Melissa snatched that out of his hands. Diamen. I forgot that was there. Must have gotten put in with my other files. Melissa, I think that's a good design. No, she said, not anymore. It's just an old science project, Izuku. We need to think practical. Melissa described it as proactively readying the next generation to handle any threats. Izuku was more than happy to put his knowledge into helping others. Quirks are always getting stranger and stronger. If he can help companies support these people, then he would be satisfied. Boom. Books and papers fell off the floor. Melissa caught herself on the table while Izuku fell on the floor. The two looked outside and saw a giant purple monster crash land outside their building. Oh no! Villains? They'll wreck the place. Izuku held up his hand and pointed to the sky. Hold on. Melissa followed his finger and in the blue sky came in a sparking orange blur. Die, you bastard! The blur became a person as they slammed their palm into the monster. A bright explosion filled the area before a boom shattered the windows. Kaken? Izuku whispered. The dust settled. The monster groaned in pain while Katsuki Bakugo scoffed. Adorned in a black costume with orange accents, the hero stood tall. He raised his hand in victory. Total victory. You got all the dash. He stopped when he saw Melissa and Izuku looking at him. Huh, what the hell are you doing here, Deku? Don't tell me you were trying to do something, you quirkless speaky. Izuku stepped back fearfully. It's been years since middle school, but Izuku never forgot his childhood friend nor his rise to fame as the explosion hero Dynamite. It was a PRD of time that he tried putting past him, but there were some things that could never be fixed, especially when Katsuki outgrew All Might. Without him, the two friends lost a vital connection and went their own ways. Plus there was the fact that Izuku was quirkless. A common factor was bullying and Katsuki was no exception. While he didn't constantly harass Izuku, he did not let that fact go whenever they did interact. Explosion was flashy, powerful, fast, all things Izuku had none of. It didn't help that he could back it up. Izuku remembered seeing glimpses of Katsuki's career in UA. Being able to win 2 sports festivals and barely being beaten in his final year. The criminal exploits that he stopped with the Endeavor Agency. Or his debut on graduation day where he tackled a Yakuza boss with the help of his class. He was skilled as he was arrogant and there was an abundance of that. We weren't trying to do anything. You blew up that monster from your fight and sent it to our labs. You could have wrecked our equipment. Melissa scolded. The hell you getting in my face for? I stopped the demon villain. Bakugo said. The two blondes stared at each other. Izuku got between the two. Guys, it's not that serious. He turned to Melissa. He stopped the villain and only wrecked a bit of the yard. We can fix it. He turned to Katsuki. Melissa's right though. You could have destroyed our equipment if you weren't so careful. Excuse me? Katsuki said. Izuku's burst of confidence shattered as Bakugo seemed to tower over him. You think you can criticize me about damage? You think you're so effing smart? Then fight the villain yourself, you demon quirkless nerd. Tch, that's not what I was saying at all. Izuku said. I just meant that. His mind went into overdrive. What did he witness? What could prevent Bakugo from lashing out? You need to get in close contact with the villain to maximize your concussive power. Ha! Melissa and Bakugo said. Your fighting style is reliant on the momentum of your explosions and positioning yourself in the right area. This makes you an effective long-range fighter, but I've noticed that your explosions can be fine. Tuned to where the concussive force of your explosion is the better damage dealer than the explosive bit. It's negligible to most people, but with durable guys like this guy over here, getting closer could let you deal more damage while endangering less people. Izuku closed his mouth. Bakugo looked stunned, eyes vacant from the information overload while Melissa nodded as if she were following along. Then again maybe I'm wrong and we can just forget about the whole thing. Shut up. Bakugo said. He clenched his teeth and grabbed the villain. I'm leaving and you can take your advice and shove it up your butt. You're not a hero. Izuku flinched before looking at Melissa. She looked resolute and nodded. A pat on the back for what he needed to say. I'm not a hero but I know a lot. Izuku said. Bakugo looked at him with disdain. I'm an analyst. Making notes on fights and powers is what I do. You don't want my insight, that's fine. Deku. Bakugo said before hearing other voices calling out for him. Stay out of my way. He launched himself and the villain in the air to the other voices in the sky. Melissa sighed in relief when he was gone. Good riddance. I can't believe he has such a nasty personality for something that requires him to help people. She turned around and saw Izuku on the floor, pale as a ghost. Izuku! The sun was setting when Izuku woke up on the couch. Melissa was sitting next to him with apples being sliced up for him. Ugh, this is humiliating. I'll say. You hadn't fainted like that since that time you made a fool of yourself in front of the dean. I didn't know that he was the dean. You brought him in when we were supposed to handle volunteers for the quirk survey at the school. Izuku said. Melissa smiled and ruffled his hair. I haven't seen Bakugo in years. I just thought back to all those times in middle school. Melissa was aware of the scars left behind by those bullies. Bakugo was a real bully, but the only one who Izuku never fully disavowed. They were childhood friends and, unlike the others, never went out of his way to bully him. She knew of his last threat when Izuku thought about applying for UA. It was a stupid threat, one where Izuku really never considered it, but it was still messed up. Still, it solidified him as garbage in her eyes. And still he held a lot of things over Izuku to this day. You think he'll take your advice? I doubt it. Catch Bakugo was never one to take what I say to heart. The blonde clicked her tongue and got up. Well, in any case, we need to get ready for work. I got contacted by some of the companies and they're sending some heroes next week to jumpstart our research. If our research helps them improve the gear for the heroes, we'll be able to work with them on this year's upcoming hero students. You sure this is still a good idea to have it just be the two of us? We don't have much to our name and there's other ways to start, like working for other companies. Like the Yaoyorozu company. Melissa stuck her tongue out. No way. I spent a good half-decade working for other companies and they don't care about results. They care about profit. If we're gonna extend our help to the right people, then we'll need to carve our own path. Uncle Might always said that we shouldn't let others dictate our path when we can smash our way through. All Might was so cool. Fix it. He was the coolest. Melissa agreed. The quiet peace was broken by the sound of growling stomachs. Melissa slowly blushed as Izuku looked at her. You didn't eat dinner, Mel? Well, I needed to take care of you. I fainted, I wasn't injured. You could have called in some food. There's still work to do. Izuku clicked his tongue now. Tell you what, I'll go pick up some dinner. You finish up with cleanup or relax. Then we'll have a celebratory drink for the startup. Fine, but I want that onigiri with eel. So greedy. Izuku said as Melissa took over his spot on the couch. Really? She looked up at him with baby doll eyes. But it's so warm and it smells like you. Hardy har har. He said with a deadpan gaze. Melissa laughed as he left the room. Her laugh echoed in the building when he left. She stopped laughing and quickly ate 3 of his apple slices. The winter night tickled Izuku's nose as it slowly turned red. The cold was to feel after being in that stuff lab all day. The lights flickered and people were walking. Conversations about heroes, their work, or even what was happening on TV filled his ears. Izuku could only listen to so much when he decided to scroll across a news video on his phone. In recent news, Dynamite has captured another villain with help from sidekicks Chargebolt and Red Riot. The 26-year-old hero is leading in the polls as an effective hero, possibly catching up to the #1 hero Dash. Revelry in the dark is not just a statement, but a phrase to show that criminals cannot hide anywhere. Even in the darkness I shall find them. The hero Tsukuyami. The fall off of the Ingenium hero line is one for the ages. Once a prominent line of heroes, now a stain on the hero community. Tonight we'll be visiting Dash. Principal Momo Yororozu is now entering her 3rd year of leading the top hero school. As the personal hand-picked successor to former Principal Nizu, the world is still astounded by the decorum presented by her. In international news, is Hummer spreading across the globe? Check in tonight at 7. Izuku's phone suddenly vibrated. It was his mother. Mahai. How are you doing? I'm doing fine, Izuku. I'm just calling to make sure you and Melissa are settled. We're fine, Mom. We got your care package this morning. Melissa has definitely blessed our lab 3 times over with it. Good, I just want to make sure you have everything you need. Oh, sweetie, I'm so excited. Your own startup company. I always knew you'd use your knowledge for good. Of course. Mom, are you still planning to visit next week? Yes, I got my train tickets all set up. Are you guys gonna be working? Possibly, but Melissa and I will always make time for you. Thank you, sweetie. I hope you're taking care of Melissa as she is with you. I don't want that poor girl take on everything herself even if she's the strongest girl you know. One of the strongest, There's still you, Izuku said. He could feel his mom get flustered, but any compliment would do that to her. Anyways, I'm getting dinner. I'll see you next week. Next week. Okay, sweetie, take care of yourself. I will. Izuku hung up when he found himself in front of the store. He was about to enter when he made contact with a girl sitting in an alleyway next to the door. Her clothes were raggedy and her eyes were sunken. She looked like she's been starving the past few days. Hello, mister. Could I trouble you for some yen? Her voice was so raspy. He froze in his spot as he looked at the girl. She looked so odd. Young enough to be a teenager, but carried the features of an aging woman. Oh. Izuku walked past her. The woman's despondent gaze somehow sunk even further as she clutched her coat closer to her. The cold enveloped her. Mister, please. The convenience store opened again and Izuku held 2 bags of items in his hand. He knelt down to the woman. Her ruby eyes lit up when he brought out some food and tea. Chicken katsu and rice, sliced apples and hot tea. He laid down in front of her and pulled out some chopsticks and a fork. And mister. She gasped. I have pork katsu if you have a preference. Or some onigiri if your stomach isn't big enough. The woman picked up the container of sliced apples. Breaking it open, she picked it up and popped it in her mouth. The cool, crisp flavor filled her tongue. Delicious. It's a good store. My friend always wants the onigiri whenever I do a snack run. The lady ate her meal, but Izuku didn't leave. Not yet. Something about her smile felt so genuine. This wasn't a scam. She was truly hungry and this food was the best thing she's had in a while. Thank you, mister, but you don't need to sit with me the entire time. It's fine. I'm just glad to have helped. Izuku got up and picked up his bag. Please enjoy. He turned around with a bit of pep in his step. Today was certainly something. He's opening a startup company with his best friend. He encountered his old bully, and he fed a homeless girl. 2 out of 3 being good was the best way to look at this. The world was in a weird spot. It has been since All Might's passing, but Izuku truly believes that these small moments are worth it. It can mean that he doesn't. Help. A shrill voice called. Izuku turned around as did other people. Back at the alleyway, the girl was being held up. The food Izuku gave her was scattered on the floor. A homeless man held her up with a cloth around her neck. Please, someone help me. Someone call the heroes. Don't get close. Izuku looked at the woman and looked around himself. This district was usually the last spot for heroes to hit during their patrol. If he was right, then Bakugo and the others would be at least 2 districts away. And what if there are other villains out there? What if he calls the police? What if somebody has another quirk? What if he coup? He ran. His legs carried him forward. The man had 2 hands on the cloth and he was dragging her. His gold eyes stared at the crowd. Izuku didn't feel anything weird hit him when he made eye contact and kept running. What's he doing? That guy's a maniac. Don't rush him. He's going to get that girl killed. No, he wasn't. He couldn't. Izuku grabbed the guy and the girl. Let her go. The man grunted and pulled the girl close. The girl looked at Izuku and smiled. He's the one. Pull us home. A purple portal opened behind the group. Izuku felt the iron grip of the man shift to his wrist. The trio fell in and Izuku could only feel darkness enveloping him. The last thing he saw before his sight was taken was the girl snapping her fingers. And like that, Izuku Midoriya vanished into the dark. Nothing but a dropped bag of food on the ground and citizens confused by the whole development. With Izuku, it was something else. Flashes of color, his body stretching, the world crumbling around him. The flow of information was too much for Izuku as he was pulled through. The woman had her back turned to him while the man held on to her and Izuku. They kept going through the tunnel. More and more flashes of light sent Izuku into shock. He could feel his flesh being burnt and torn as they traveled through. No. The woman said. Her voice echoed with power as her cap was blown off and revealed a large horn. White lightning poured out of her and into her passengers. Izuku felt his flesh return to normal, the burns and tears repairing itself. His mind slowly pieced itself together. A few more seconds passed before the light died down and the momentum threw the three on the ground. The man and woman landed on their feet while Izuku rolled across the ground like a rag doll. His mind flashed in and out of consciousness. He didn't know what happened before waking up in bed. Alone in an empty bedroom, Izuku stood up before feeling the after effects hit him. He coughed hard before feeling everything hit him and puked his guts out. While he was gathering his bearings, Izuku heard voices outside the room. Hatsume's watch, it's got one more charge. That was dangerous. How are you feeling? That was a lot of energy. I'm fine as long as the watch is. Focus on him. Get him ready. But dash. Now. The door opened. It was the same girl and man from before. The man who held that girl hostage, his disguise was gone. He was scarred everywhere and his black hair fell to his lower back. His gold eyes did indicate his appearance close to Eraserhead. Eraserhead turned to the girl. Eri, come on, he's okay. The girl walked up and leaned against Aizawa, breathing hard. Izuku stood up. Wait, are you okay? I should be asking you that, Midoriya. Eri said. After all, this can be seen as kidnapping. He looked at her and noticed that the massive horn she had has now shrunk, but is slowly starting to grow again. Your horn. It's connected to your quirk, isn't it? I remember you saying something and energy pouring out. My wounds weren't healed. It's not like Recovery Girl who speeds up the healing process. Your quirk does something else. It rewinds it. You undo the damage and reverse the state of whatever that energy touches. You're smart. We rushed the process too quickly when you grabbed onto us. It made our transport unstable and unable to protect you. Eri chuckled before coughing again, hacking up her lungs until she was on her knees. Eraserhead held her close while Midoriya got closer. Is she okay? No, she's not. Her body has been rewound too many times and the strain is finally taking its toll. Eraserhead stated. Eri raised her hand and faced Midoriya. I've been looking for you, Midoriya. We all have been looking for you. Eri got up and walked to the window. Izuku followed her and stood outside. Izuku had to cover his mouth when he saw the leveled buildings, the ruined city, and the blackened sky. Where are we? Did a villain do this? The villain is dead. Eri killed him, but not before it was too late. Eraserhead said. What? Eri nudged Izuku to the door. Walk with me. Don't worry, anyone you see here is a friend. Izuku followed Eri out and saw Eraserhead give her a cane. He could see that Eri was trying to walk with confidence, but she hobbled every few steps. Izuku wanted to help her so badly, but something told him not to let her walk on her own since this seemed important. The three walked out with Eri leading them. Welcome to the future. It was a desolate wasteland. Izuku could barely breathe the horrid air. There were groups of people working. A woman hopping around like a frog was pulling debris away. There were children underneath it. There was a man who held hands with a girl that had giant hands. Once he let go, his hands grew to her size. They dug their hands in the ground and dug with their hands. This is the future? Well, a possible future. Eri said. We were unprepared for the level of destruction these villains brought. We couldn't rally our forces fast enough and I was given this power too early. My predecessor believed that I could win, but they never told me or possibly didn't know what I'd be able to save. Eri, take a breath, you don't need to rush it. No, it's time. This power can still help others outside of our world and this flame, it can still help others out there. I'm sorry, but I need to know. What are you suggesting? Izuku said. Eraserhead and Eri looked at each other. Then Eri whistled. A battered woman jumped down next to them. Her hair was burnt and Izuku saw that her arm was missing. Izuku winced at appearance. Kami, would you mind giving a visual? Eraserhead asked. Understood. Her monotone voice said. She pressed her fingers against her lips and blew air. Sparkles enraptured the three. Izuku found himself in another set of ruins. Mighty stomp rocked the ground and Izuku saw All Might bleeding. There were so many devastating wounds across his body. It started when All Might died trying to take down the greatest villain in history. I remember this. The documentaries went all in on how All Might sacrificed himself and took on the biggest attack in history. His power was labeled the strongest, Izuku said. The difference was that All Might never defeated the villain, only repelled him. Eri said, the vision showed All Might dying from his wounds and the shadowy mass close to him melting into the ground. Izuku didn't know what to say as he watched the greatest hero die from his wounds. Did they ever tell you the secret of All Might's strength? Secret? Izuku asked. Eri sat next to the dead All Might with some space between them. A blue vestige sprouted between them, then more colored vestiges appeared next to All Might. He had the power to pass on his quirk to others. A mighty will dedicated to justice and would grow with each successor. All Might's strength was never his own. Holy CRP. Wait, are you serious? If quirks can be passed on besides genetics, this changes the whole thing. There could be so many applications and studies on what this might mean for some people that quirkless or their bodies being predisposed to other types of quirks. We could dash. Eraserhead bopped Izuku on the head. Not the same case and pay attention. Yes, sir. Izuku groaned. Eri continued. All Might passed on his quirk to his successor and she failed. When it was her time, the image shifted and it showed Eri in the sewer with only a bloody hand holding onto her. Izuku clenched his fists at watching this kid sobbing. It was my turn. I had no choice. I owed her my life. The image flickered again and now it showed Eri as a young woman, barely 19, standing off against a raging storm. The world was in shambles. The storm towered over her and fired off lightning. Eri ran forward. Her body was broken and bloody. Yet with her horn glowing, the wounds rewound, stitching itself back together. A bright explosion filled the area when she threw her final punch. I saved the world or what's left of it. Eri said, you did save us. Don't think otherwise. Eraserhead said. Eri nodded, but continued her tale. This power, it saved the world, but I found out that it's killing me. I was content with passing on and allowing this power to die out, but then I realized this shouldn't be the case. It should still be passed on. Passed on to a world that doesn't have an All Might or his successors. I want to give this power to you. Izuku felt his body lock up at the news. This power, the power of All Might and those before him? It was going to be his? That, I shouldn't. This is an amazing power. It should go to the strongest person you know so that they can protect the world. It already has. This world needs to begin anew without the lingering power of the past. Plus, it wouldn't work well with the strongest. Those with quirks cannot hold onto this power for long. Its best match is one who doesn't possess power, but heart. She needed someone quirkless. Izuku felt his body swaying at the news. His world was changing, but wait. Your body, your age. How old are you, Eri? Eri smiled. 20. 20, and yet she appeared to be close to entering her twilight years. She grunted and powered up her horn. Her aged features were reduced slightly, but not enough to reflect her statement. Those with quirks are meant to hold onto just their quirk. Stacking on generations' worth of strength turns out to be more of a liability than anything else. You won't encounter that problem. This is why I've been looking for someone like you. You're quirkless, but you don't let that stop you. When I was in danger, you didn't hesitate to run. This power was meant to be held by true heroes. Eri stood up toward Izuku. Her eyes shined brightly as she held out her hand. I want to give my power to you and let this power save your world. I can't. Izuku felt some tears rising. That's a lot of responsibility you're asking me to take. I mean, this power, if it's been passed on for generations through anybody, then it must be strong. I could wreck my body throwing a punch like you did. Eraserhead scoffed. He's too smart, Eri, he'd never accept it. Eri's gaze didn't waver. I'm sure you'll accept it, Izuku. Because I know what you are, who you are. She nodded at Kami and Kami changed the picture once more. A man with green hair was running with a child in his arms. The child being Eri. Izuku's eyes widened as he saw himself carrying her out. All Might's successor wasn't my hero. She put a first to his chest. You are. Izuku kept watching as Eri clung onto his counterpart, sobbing but smiling. Despite the pain, despite the blood. To see you running towards me, I knew you were the one who should have inherited this power. You are the one to inherit one for all. Eri coughed again and time Izuku caught her. He held on to her tight. She could feel him heaving and his body shaking. Yet when she looked up, there were only tears and a smile on his face. I'll do it. I'll take on your power. Izuku said. Eri sighed while Eraserhead picked up her cane. Thank you, Kami. Eraserhead said. Kami dropped the veil and nodded. She jumped back and left them alone. Wait, but what of your world? If I take this power, will everyone be safe without it? I'll still have the embers after you take it. I will be the last one for all user in this world and the people will have to be ready when those embers are gone. Eri said. And if it's any consolation, you'll save my life. Eraserhead tapped Eri on the head. What about his body? Even if he gets it, the power would be too much. We can't train him here. There's not enough supplies to endure training him here without cutting into our reserves for the others. Eri smirked. I had just the idea for it. Stand back, both of you. The two stepped back as Eri's horn began to grow. She clenches her fist and lets her power run wild. White lighting erupted from her body as she screamed. Her horn grew and shrunk at a wild pace. Eraser held Izuku up while Eri placed her hands on her chest. Her eyes went white when she let out a primal scream. The light grew brighter before Eri stopped and fell to her knees. Eri! Eraser and Izuku shouted. They ran to her side when she gasped for air. You reckless child. Why would you do that? I took a gamble. Eri said. No, you were being stupid. Izuku and Eraser said. Eri raised her arms in surrender at the two. She turned to Izuku and grabbed her horn. Izuku and Eraser didn't know what she was doing before she snapped it off her head. The two screamed again. Eraser held Eri close as she held up a piece of the horn to Izuku. Eat this. What? I used my rewind to reduce the power of one for all to a manageable amount. The power will be available right off the bat since it wouldn't be as strong. It's a temporary measure, it will regain its strength in time with a new host. Izuku, you need to train. Get strong and master these powers. Eri. Izuku said. She silenced him. You don't have to eat it now. You can take it at home, but with my express permission you can inherit one for all whenever you want. Izuku had a realization that just struck him. How am I supposed to get home? Eraser pulled off his watch and strapped on Izuku's hand. A gift from an old friend and her collaborator. It's got one more charge to take you back. Afterwards, it'll just be a normal watch. Izuku held the watch and looked at Eri and Eraser. He looked at the world around him. I could stay. Help you out and train. I can put some of my skills to work. Eri shook her head. No need. You've accepted my power and have a way home. Let this be a gift from one world to another. Between friends. Izuku held the horn and turned to Eraserhead. The man's eyes were filled with nothing but concern for Eri. Anyone would question this. In fact, Izuku wasn't sure if this was a dream or not, but he would definitely not dream of a ruined future. He would never dream of this girl suffering so much to give him power. You're giving me a chance to live an old dream. I don't know what I can do to make it worth it, but I swear. Thank you, my hero. Eri slumped to the ground. I'm so happy to have finally helped you. Eri, Izuku said. Eraser held his hand up. She's just resting. I'm not sure you can understand the amount of weight you lifted off her shoulders, but she appreciates it. As do I. Did you know me from this world? Eraser didn't say anything for a second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. You were a problem child. Huh? Izuku gasped. Eraser reached into his pockets and pulled out a small journal. He put it in Izuku's hand. This was Eri's training manual. Everything she did to get strong and handle one for all is in there. Use it to guide your journey. Izuku opened the journal and saw many excerpts, then a bunch of blank pages. Why are so many of these pages blank? Eraser shrugged. We ended up fighting more often than writing. And Eri put a lot of practice in those life and death fights. He kneels down and moves a strand from her hair. This is the first time in a year I've seen her sleep so peacefully. Thank you, Midoriya. You're welcome. He looked at the watch. Would I ever be able to see you guys again? If everything goes well in your world, then you'll never have to. Eraser said. Besides, you'll have Eri by your side no matter what. You're forever bonded by one for all. Izuku glanced at her. Eraserhead held Midoriya's wrist and set the watch to the right coordinates. Oh, by the way, Midoriya, if you're really screwed up, find me at US. He held up a piece of paper. I don't know that you'd believe me, but I've encountered quirk users that displaced people from time and space. Figured I give anyone in my good graces needing me will need a specific code for me to listen. Midoriya stuffed the paper in his pocket when Eraserhead hit the button on the watch. Izuku felt an energy course through his body before a portal opened behind him. The energy hooked onto the portal and yanked him through. Izuku took one last glance at Eri and Eraserhead before they vanished behind the closing portal. He held onto the horn as he stared into the void with determination. His body was shaking, but he faced the colors, the very essence of space moving aside from him. When the light split open in front of him, Izuku braced himself. This is real. I'm going to get a quirk. I'm going to be a hero. Holy CD, I never thought this was going to happen. Today should be just a fantasy or a dream. If this is a dream, give me a sign. The portal spat Izuku out. Izuku braced himself to slide across the floor when he paused to see himself in the air. Specifically 4 stories in the air. Why is this the sign? Izuku screamed before he fell. His screams echoed in the night as he held onto the horn and notebook. He did have to wake up, after all he wouldn't die after getting a chance to be a hero so soon. What kind of god would allow this to happen? Does he have a cruel sense of who? Gotcha! A voice said. Izuku didn't care to open his eyes since he was falling, but then he felt his momentum slow down. You can open your eyes. He slowly opened his eyes and saw a woman in pink floating next to him. She was wearing a puffy jacket with a spandex top underneath. Her sleeves were rolled up to make room for her gauntlets. Izuku noted that her costume seemed close to an astronaut's, especially with the glass helmet and the moon shoes she was wearing. His eyes suddenly widened when he started running in place. Holy moly, I'm floating. How the wait, you must be Uravity. Correcto, my friendo. Uravity at your service. The woman grabbed his hand and he felt at ease as she floated them down. Uravity. Oh man, you've been a great hero since you debuted. I thought about your quirk and from your interviews it sounds like you manipulate gravity. That's an amazing quirk in a lot of rescue scenarios and a few battles, especially if your opponent deals in weight. Your costume has also been ranked as the cutest among your alumni, but I noticed a lot of practical applications like... Izuku stopped when he saw Uravity stare at him with the same overwhelmed blank look whenever he info dumped on anyone. Melissa said it should count as a power to stun your opponents with boatloads of information. Thank you for the rescue. He said quietly. Don't worry about it. In truth, I haven't had anyone comment on my quirk like that in years. Release, Uravity said and dropped them on the ground. Anywho, what about you? Are you okay? Do you remember the villains that kidnapped you? Kidnapped? Izuku asked. Uravity nodded. Yup, you're the green head guy that got kidnapped 2 days ago. You don't look injured, but then again you were thrown out of the same portal. It's been 2 days? Izuku asked. Turns out that Izuku's little trip to another world cost him 2 days in the real world. 2 whole days since it was reported that he was taken. Suffice to say, the heroes were looking for him. I don't. He couldn't explain anything about the previous world nor reveal his contents. He subtly hid his gifts before Uravity could notice. I don't remember. I just remember a flash of colors and someone pushing me again out here. Uravity walked around him, getting close and doing little pokes. Izuku blushed at having this amazing rescue hero dote over him. No injuries. Possibly a mind quirk. Do you feel any pain in the mind? Nothing really. Uravity pondered more before they heard a loud scream. Izuku! Arg, you beach, that was loud. Around the corner was Melissa and Bakugo. Izuku felt oddly calm at seeing him. It wasn't like last time where he was stunned. Melissa was crying in relief, but also in the kind of funny, ugly sobbing way. Melissa seemed to blitz both heroes when she tackled Izuku. Her head was buried in his chest and her arms tightened around him with each passing second. She held on to him like he was a phantom, and if she let him go then he'd disappear again. Hey bobblehead, is the idiot okay? The Civlina is fine, Dynamite. Uravity replied curtly. Also don't refer to the civilians as beaches. It'll make grape juice look good in comparison. You think I'd let myself get behind him? Go to hell. Izuku tuned out those two as he patted Melissa on the head. I'm fine, Melissa. Are you? No, I got worried when I woke up from my nap and the news said someone disappeared. I check and it's you. You ran in on some criminal holding a girl hostage. You disappeared and I thought you were dead. Melissa sobbed. Izuku almost chuckled when he saw the bags underneath her eyes. He patted her on the head and turned to the heroes still having an argument. Thank you, heroes, for looking for me and helping my friend. Uravity nodded. No problem. We'll always be ready to rescue others. Bakugo clicked his tongue. I'm going to miss out on my appointments because you're dumbass. Tried to be a hero. Deku, I don't want you to even think about being a hero. You ran in and then what? You would have ended up a statistic. Izuku's fist clenched when he remembered the relief on Eri's face. I couldn't turn my back. You're right, I'm not trained, I'm not even sure what I would have done if it went bad, but I won't turn my back on people who need help. Bakugo's sneer turned sour as he clenched his fists. Oh, you're still quoting All Might? How about you get a reality check, Deku, and look around you? You say you want to help, then don't let us waste resources on you when it could be used for other people. You keep following his lame but advice and you'll end up just like him. Uravity saw Melissa shake again, but she could see it wasn't from relief or sadness. It was anger. Let's go, Dynamite, we need to fill out our reports that our victim was found. She turned to Izuku and flashed a brief apology sign. Bakugo rolled his eyes and blasted off. Uravity sighed with a hand on the hips. That guy. Honestly, it's that attitude that has gotten a wee bit worse since UA. Yeah, tell him not to belittle a victim. Melissa muttered. Uravity nodded and tapped her body to begin floating. Wait. She turned and saw Izuku holding his hand out, holding a small card. You rescued me and I feel like we can work something out. We're a support gear startup and if you ever need anything then please come find us. Melissa had bug eyes looking at this sudden burst on confident networking. Oh, thank you. Uravity had plenty of companies offering her items and repairs for her gear. Still, if her past was anything to go off of, never ignore a favor. I'll see you around, have a wonderful day. With that, Uravity floated off into the air. Izuku and Melissa watched her float off when Izuku put a hand on his chin. She doesn't appear to have any directional control. If we follow the space inspiration then maybe we can add those nano thrusters. Give her more direction to work with and even more strength dash. Melissa went back to hugging Izuku and crushing his lungs. Mel. Hours later, Izuku was drying off his hair as Melissa sat at his desk working on her blueprints. You seriously have no idea what happened? Nope. It was just a flash of light and the next thing I know I'm falling out of the sky. Izuku said as he dropped his towel and got changed. Melissa turned around and sighed. Mel, privacy. Nothing about your body surprises me since the Mr. Smiley incident. Melissa said. She moved up to Izuku and poked him in the belly. Plus Katsu belly. Hey, we both agreed on not poking the gut. Izuku said as he pulled his breathes up. Actually, Melissa, I wanted to ask you. Yeah. Would you be all right if I started training? Izuku asked. Melissa blinked before accounting all that happened. It has nothing to do with what Bakugo said. I just feel like I should at least be prepared. Melissa pondered on it for a second. No, I don't have an issue. Actually, Island sent a bunch of old workout machines upon my request for testing machines. Outdated Island equipment should still be pretty useful. Cool, I'm going to have some tea before bed. I can come with, Melissa said, but Izuku held up his hand. You still need to make sure our items are prepped for next week. If we don't do well, then this will all be for naught. Melissa understood the logic, but still. Izuku could see her conflict and leaned in, head on the shoulder. I'm fine. And if one of us is fine, then we're both fine, Melissa said. I get it. Izuku left the room and Melissa sat back in front of her computer. There was a half-written email on her side. She stared at the page for a full minute before shutting her computer down and laying on Izuku's bed. She was too compromised today. Let this be future Melissa's problem. Outside, Izuku on the porch in their blasted backyard. He slipped Aries' horn from his pocket and held it in his hands. Even if it's been some time, he could almost hear the hum of energy coursing through it. He just had to do one thing. He opened his mouth and put the horn in his mouth. He grabbed his tea and drank it. Pushing the horn down, Izuku could feel his stomach digest it. A minute passed, then another. Izuku looked at his hands. There was no tingle. No adverse feelings. He remembered when Eri used her power on him. The energy coursing through his system was something out of this world. This will help me be a hero. Maybe I just need a good night's sleep to really feel it. Suddenly a green spark flickered. I agree, young Midoriya. Izuku didn't jump out of his skin. Reason 1. He was a grown man. Izuku didn't jump out of his skin. Reason 2. He just saw power flicker in his hands. Izuku jumped out of his skeleton when he saw All Might standing right next to him. Midoriya had a busy day. Got a lab set up with his best friend, helped a girl, got kidnapped to an alternate future where he was granted the power of the greatest heroes to revive his old dream and return to work. All of those things could numb a man to the most outrageous things. Well, almost all things that are not All Might shaped. Izuku screamed and kept growing loud and shrill as the All Might ghost was waving his hands to silence them. Wait, young Midoriya, please keep calm. You know my name. Izuku shouted. All Might looked desperate to shut him up, but then the door broke his form and out came Melissa with a baseball bat. Who's there? I'll break your kneecaps, Melissa yelled. Izuku finally calmed down a bit and saw the All Might ghost appear behind Melissa and urged him to be quiet. He steadied his breathing. Izuku, what happened? Who tried to get you? What I just... Izuku stammered. I saw a raccoon. Melissa's glasses hid her eyes, but the blank expression on her lower face spoke a different story. It scared me, okay, I'm just a little bit wired. He glanced at All Might towering over both of them. He did notice him looking at Melissa with a sober expression. I'm sorry, Melissa. I don't want to be a burden. Melissa put a hand on his shoulder. You're not a burden, Izuku. You never are. If you need time, then you can take time. I want us to make our mark together when we're at our best. Izuku rolled his shoulder and got up. Thank you. She patted him on the shoulder and sat next to him. I'll stick with you tonight. Just to be sure. Thank you, my friend. He adjusted himself and looked at All Might. The ghostly figure watched them closely before taking a knee in front of Midoriya. Young Midoriya, let's start from the beginning. You've taken one for all and with it, a great responsibility. You will meet them all, but the other vestiges within one for all are ready to help you on your journey. Hey Melissa, do you remember what those spiritual professors said about our quirks? That a quirk is representative of the soul. Vestiges, they called them. Yeah. The idea stemmed from those with body fusion quirks. The person who absorbed the body part or became a new person inherited traits like their personality. Melissa said as she rested the bat next to her side. Why? I just wonder if we'd ever encounter something like that in future clients. Like when would that happen? Izuku said while looking All Might in the eye. You'll get to see when your body gets strong enough. Right now we need to focus on your getting strong enough to handle that power. Young Eri may have shrunk the pool, but one for all won't be like that forever. If you're not strong enough, then even 10% of the power will break you. Izuku gulped nervously and remembered the notebook. Oh yes, make sure to really look at young Eri's notes. She got the basic notes done and anything she may have lacked. All Might posed. I will help to fill out what's missing. I don't know, man. I thought we agreed that all that vestige needed more evidence. Melissa said. She looked over the blasted zone where Bakugu landed earlier and huffed. That D-head from earlier ruined our lab space for the quirk testing spot. We'll need more time to finish up the building. All Might looked at the plot of land and then laughed mightily. Izuku tried to keep his reactions minimal, but he just flinched at it. Melissa noticed, but nodded. Don't worry. If something like this happens again when building this, then I'll squeeze those heroes' paychecks. She's pretty serious about that, but young Midoriya, I now know what we must do. You will build this building with your own 2 hands. Huh? Izuku said. Melissa and All Might looked at him confused by his response when Izuku just got up. I'm going to bed. Okay, Izuku, rest well. Yes, get your rest, young man, because we're gonna get started with your training at the crack of dawn. All Might has a great feeling about this kid. Dawn. All Might had a great feeling about this kid. He may have underestimated how unfit Izuku really was. He was currently sweating up a river and soaking through his jogger's jacket while reading Aries' journal. 3 kilometers. How far am I now? 130 meters. All Might said. Hey, good on you for running, dude. Remember, the first step is always the most difficult. A red-headed jogger said. Izuku just gave a shaky thumbs up while he groaned in disappointment. Don't be discouraged, young Midoriya. This training has been curated to help you handle the power. Now remember, don't use the power unless you absolutely need to, and even then. Yeah, I got it. Izuku said and watched All Might look around the area. Are okay, All Might? It's nothing, young Midoriya. Young Eri has been fighting for a long time and in an era where peace was an afterthought. I wish she would have been able to see this. A place where violence isn't the first answer. Izuku nodded and got up. In truth, Izuku was more skeptical of what constitutes peace. During All Might's tenure, Japan's crime statistics were at an all-time low. Things are still fine because they were costing off his sacrifice. Yet Izuku could see with how some people perceive heroes that it wasn't the whole story. Big cities were safe due to the hero population. The suburbs and smaller towns faced harsher statistics that can only be attributed to less capable heroes being the only ones sent to those areas. Schools like UA are mocked often for their many events to showcase heroes, and each year gets less and less attention. Peace was here, but it was too fragile. If there were more heroes like Uravity or skilled like Bakugu, could there be real peace? Don't ignore me. Stop muttering. Oh, sorry. Izuku sheepishly apologized. You just got me thinking. I know. Similar to my world, your All Might left too early. Not even a successor to One for All exists till now. All Might said. His smile seemed to waver for a second. Then that just means we'll have to go above and beyond. Plus ultra. Plus ultra. Izuku said. All Might was motivating him. He couldn't waste this opportunity. Izuku ran at full speed. There was nothing he could. You shouldn't run too fast or... Izuku's muscles tightened too fast and he fell to the ground. A wimpy whimper acknowledged him. Throughout the day, Izuku was showing All Might his limits and was rated on a scale of 1 to 5 with his performance and abilities in mind. Pushing a heavy cabinet into the trash. 2 out of 5. Running 4 kilometers. 2 out of 5. Throwing a punch. 1 out of 5. Stamina. 1 out of 5. Izuku sat at a bench underneath the cherry blossom trees with his body aching everywhere. All Might sat next to him. I am here to tell you, there's a lot of work to do. DMN it. Izuku groaned. He clenched his fists and wiped some tears from his face. I didn't think I was so dim and weak. True. If you were as strong as you were smart, you'd already be using OFA at 100%. Young Midoriya, it's only day 1. Do not let this get you distraught. Sure. Midoriya responded despondently. Young Midoriya, why did you dream of being a hero? Izuku peeked at All Might before venturing into his thoughts. There was money. Izuku remembered in high school how much money his mother scraped up to let him go. Respect. Izuku never really had any friends until Melissa, He imagined if he was ever a big hero then he'd be surrounded by friends. Freedom. He's seen so many people fly up and do things he'd never imagine was an option for him. Yet all of those things were surface level. Convenient excuses. What was his reason? I wanted to be a hero because I could never walk away. Izuku remembered all the injuries from fights in high school and college. When people picked on others or when someone got too pushy with Melissa. Izuku remembered when he ran to Eri. There was no question about what he'd do. No powers, no skills, it didn't matter. He'd run forward if he knew he could help. When you save people, your smile always calms them down. The world could be breaking and no one would feel they were in danger. He remembered wiping his mom's tears when he got back from those fights. Melissa would buy him an ice cream. Izuku remembered how worried they were and smiled in relief that he was fine. Those smiles were to comfort him, but the best feeling was felt when they smiled at how they knew he was defending someone. I want to be the hero who will always reach out. All Might saw the fire in his eyes. The steel in his words. He nodded. Melissa was right, this power should be yours. Melissa? My apologies, young Eri. I've been thinking about Melissa since I came here. It's been a long time since I've seen her so happy. You've been a good friend to her. Izuku nodded. I wouldn't be here without her. She helped me find my passion for analysis when I was in a dark place. She was my first friend, the closest person in my life with the exception of my mom. He felt a chill run down his spine. All Might was looking down at him. Oh wait, that's right. All Might was something of an uncle to her. Which means he would feel particular about any guy with her. And nothing like that. I mean, we're close, but not that close. I've got other friends and all that. Ha. It's okay, young Midoriya. She's a grown woman. If I was worried about you, I would have broken your body with a flex of my mind and OF it. Ha, I know. You're joking, right? You couldn't actually break my body with OFA. All Might glanced at him before pointing forward. Break time's over, young Midoriya. Let's press on. All Might? All Might. Izuku called out. He was pretty desperate that he didn't notice a familiar bob of hair turn in his direction. In the evening, Melissa ate her katsudon with Izuku and watched him chew his chicken like a cow. Izuku, are you sure you want to do that? Yeah. He groggily said. Why? You're just, so tired and this is probably the first time you've actually wanted to work out. I'm not so sure that doing the building yourself will be fine. Izuku nodded. It's mostly just moving and hammering the materials. We'll get electricians to do the internal work. I'm not stupid. Never said you were. Melissa said. I just don't want you to hurt yourself. I'll be fine. Izuku said. He remembered how distraught she was when he went missing. What about our clients? Do we need to start working? Melissa's mind seemed to suddenly light up. Oh, right about that. It's going to be pushed to a few months. End of the year, really? End of the year? Melissa waved her hands up to calm him down. It's not what you think. I got a message from my dad and it was, how do I say this? Izuku watched her ponder before grabbing a pen and paper near them. She wrote something on it and slid it to Izuku. He looked at the paper and his jaw finally gave up. Food fell out of his mouth. Holy dash. Super CRP. All Might shouted as he looked over Izuku's shoulder. Dave, old boy, how much money? Melissa covered her face and groaned, not noticing Izuku waving off the invisible spirit. I wanted to say no, but there's so much money and I want to have us running around and doing local aid. If we're gonna really start making our plays, we need the locals to know us. Local aid? Izuku asked. Yes. You did some networking with those heroes yesterday and Uravity agreed to have us look at her equipment at the end of the week. I didn't initially think of going through with it, but then the money appeared and I realized we'll need a lot more money for our testing ground and for us to impress not just her but every hero we work with. Oh. Melissa seemed really conflicted. Izuku was aware of how much Melissa loves her father, but it wasn't always so amicable. On one hand, Izuku and Melissa were determined to make their mark on their own, only going by the intellect and genius. On the other hand, this amount of money could make their startup guarantee a shot at lasting in the long run. Melissa, I'll trust you to make the right decision. Izuku, I can't. Yes, you can. This is something your father sent. Whether you choose to accept it or not is dependent on you. You're not weak or incapable if you accept his money. Melissa wiped her dry eyes and shook her head. It's nice to have money. Tell you what, let's put the money away in a secret account. It'll be our emergency fund. Melissa chuckled and nodded. Izuku knew the shadow her father casted on her. Melissa Shield was always one accused of nepotism, and being quirkless made those accusations hit hard. It was part of the reason why she and Izuku ran around the same circles. There was no one else to run with them. Midoriya sat alone at his desk. General education was going well, but still he needed something else. Something to get rid of that gnawing feeling in his gut. Something. Anything. Anyone. That anyone kicked open the door in his room with a mechanical enhanced kick. Midoriya. What the dash? He turned and saw it was one of his classmates. Melissa. He's been her classmate since the start of the semester, but they never really talked. Much less barge into any rooms. Hey Midoriya, listen, I got my foot locked in with this beast and I need some help getting to my dorm. Hope that isn't a problem. No problem at all. He said hesitantly. Good. My foot stuck in your wall, can you just help me pull it out? He did and released Melissa from his wall. Oops, sorry about your wall. I can fix it up and compensate you if the university charges you. Midoriya shook his head. No, it's fine, Melissa? I'm Melissa Shield. Your classmate and seat neighbor for the past 2 months. Melissa said as she leaned in. Midoriya quickly backed away from the American and nodded. She was confused by how fast he was and turned to him. Oh my bad, Midoriya. Didn't mean to get so dash. Melissa stopped when she looked at the papers on the ground. Her eyes lit up with every single word she scanned. Sinking to the floor, she read the paper over and over. Holy super CRP. You have a detailed report on our professor's quirk. So many theories. So much evidence. Midoriya squealed and grabbed the papers out of her hand. Please don't tell the professor. I just noticed things about them and wrote it down. Why would I tell her that? I'm just admiring your work, Midoriya. He didn't look convinced. She crossed her heart. I promise. That why did you kick my door? Melissa rubbed her fingers embarrassed. I was working on some hopping boots that would replicate Miruko's distance. Izuku tilted his head and looked at her boots. He looked at the boot and Melissa and then his computer. Sighing, he got up and pulled up a document. Don't judge me, please. Hee, of course I won't. Not unless you got some Miruko pin-ups in the doc. Midoriya let out the first sound of what sounded like laughter. He pulls up the doc and faces Melissa. She looks at his work in complete awe. Midoriya pointed at Miruko's action pictures. You want to replicate Miruko's bounce, but your design is way too bulky. Miruko's rabbit foot emphasizes the natural advantages of her quirk to jump. It's the foot and leg strength that pushes it. If you do just the foot, you'll lose out on strength and build up. Melissa was still in awe and began to bombard him with questions. He remembered them sharing all their notes till the dead of night. And thus ended their first day of friendship. What a first meeting! He snickered at the old memory and turned to see Melissa still looking contemplative. He patted her on the head. Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. In the meantime, I guess if we're not using the money, we gotta be careful on who we hire. So, you can work on it. We'll need a consultant though. There was always a catch. Dave never let me help build anything. Always something about safety standards. Good for me. Izuku said. A week later, Izuku crawled back into the lab. Exhaustion hitting all-time high. For the past week, All Might has been breaking all of Izuku's limits. Everything from arms to legs, from chest to abs, and even calves to glutes. Not to mention, he's cut down a lot of Izuku's snacking and indulgences. Not all the way down, Izuku seemed to make it clear that he should be allowed a crepe every once in a while. Today was really difficult since All Might had him start at the edge of town and run all the way across back to the lab. What he would give to finally have a glass of water or a nap. A deep, deep, deep nap. Oh, hey, it's you, Deku. A voice called. Did I die? Gee, I hope not. Wouldn't be a good hero if you did die. Izuku took a second to recognize the voice. Looking down at him in casual clothes was Uravity. Izuku didn't know what happened, but he found himself facing the wall and a big gust of wind following him. Holy Siri, you're fast. The door bust open. Izuku, there you are. Melissa held Izuku by the scruff of his shirt. You idiot. I told you not to do any major exercise today. We have a guest and I don't want her to get the wrong idea about us. The blonde slowly turned and saw Ochako staring at them with a still expression with a soft smile. Don't mind me. Just watching you and Deku work is worth the visit. Melissa dropped Izuku. No, we don't do this here in Shield Industries. We're a company of compassion and love and results, and Izuku, back me up, please. Izuku, however, was concerned about something else. Did you call me Deku? Uravity nodded. Yeah, it's what Bakugo called you. I heard the name before when we were in UA, but I never would have guessed it would be you. Oh, that's okay, I guess? Just for clarification, why are you calling me Deku? 'Cause you and Bakugo are childhood friends. I remember because we were talking about funny names. Bakugo was all like, I remember someone named Deku, blah blah, angry growling gore. Izuku didn't know what to say, but the impression was a little funny. I thought it was cute to use Dekairu like that. Though it's Bakugo, so maybe it was ironic. Izuku blushed and turned away. He's actually using it unironically. Oh, well, Deku doesn't sound too bad. I think you can make it work. Uravity said. More like you can do it. Melissa looked at Izuku. The name Deku came up every once in a while, but not in good circumstances. And when she met Bakugo earlier using it, it really convinced her that it was a really shitty name. But she'll let Izuku handle it. He was a man after all. It's a really nice idea, Ms. Uravity. I just don't know. Uravity tapped her cheek. Tell you what if I gave you my name and you can call me that? And even if Deku doesn't work for you, you can still call me by name. Look, Izuku said reluctantly. She was so straightforward and kind. He couldn't even fault her deal. She's basically giving him her name and he doesn't even need to go by his old nickname. Uravity held out her hand. I'm Ochako Uraraka, Pro Hero Uravity. Izuku held his hand out. I'm Izuku Midoriya, Pro Analyst Deku. Melissa was completely shocked. How could he make such a change? Why has he become so determined lately? First to work out, to take charge in construction, and now accepting being called by his old nickname. Who is he? Nice to meet you, Deku. Now I was told you guys could look at my equipment. Melissa and Deku locked in when Ochako presented her case. They had the following items: 2 gauntlets, 2 moon boots, the puffer jacket, a spandex bodysuit, a helmet, and a utility belt. Izuku held the helmet and examined the inside. Ochako watched Melissa pick up a gauntlet. I hope we're not stepping on any toes with your company? Nah, you're good. We can work with any company as long as it's not an overhaul of the first company's work. You guys said you would do equipment consultation. Ochako said before seeing Melissa open her gauntlet. Huh. Melissa took off the shell and put the glove on. The important thing to remember is a balance between aesthetics and practicality. These gloves have grappling hooks, but the trigger seems too loose. You need to add more pressure to the trigger or else in high-pressure situations you could make a miscalculation. Izuku appeared right next to Ochako while holding the helmet next to her head. Your gravity powers appear to have the side effect of nausea. The helmet does alleviate those initial symptoms. Uraraka, what exactly are your limitations? Is your quirk similar to being anti-gravity or reversing gravity? Can you extend your reach to others? You're missing the important part, Izuku, it's mobility. If we focus on the equipment's purpose for her, then we can have her capabilities skyrocket. Maybe if we get permission we'll add our mini thrusters. Guys. Ochako started. We do need more information on what her powers affect. If we put thrusters on her costume and don't account for her limitations, then we run the risk of her overpowering the gear and having her overshoot her targets. Guys. Ochako said again. Now the spandex, I like the color scheme, but we'll need something more durable. Guys. Ochako sprung her hands in the air. Melissa and Izuku turned to see Ochako overwhelmed by the boatload of information. Let's try to keep it one at a time, please. Izuku and Melissa blushed at their tendencies overlapping and overwhelming their first client. The next hour, Ochako, Melissa, and Izuku shared information and anecdotes. Izuku was happy for the break when Melissa asked an interesting question. You worked in construction? Yes, actually. I took a break after graduation to help my parents with the business. Got some extra work on the side with aid. Young Midoriya, I am here to say you need this opportunity. Izuku was getting used to All Might popping out of nowhere, especially when he tried to give Midoriya some morning motivation during his morning bathroom breaks. This one's trying to save us some money and wants to start building. Would you be available to help? Ochako looked at Izuku and saw the empty plot. You know what, I got no major missions coming up. I'll spend a day or two throughout the week helping out. Maybe I can put this as part of my community service. Melissa tilted her head. Community service? Ochako froze. Oh, is it from the grocery store truck that got mixed up with money launderers? Oh God, my cabbages. They're spilling everywhere. The shopkeeper yelled. Ochako was waving her hands frantically, profusely apologizing. Behind her, the frog hero Froppy was pulling the truck down. Ochako was bowing repeatedly. I'm so sorry, sir. Please forgive my bad actions. Uravity, could you undo your gravity? I can't keep my tongue wrapped around it forever. Izuku and Melissa were watching the video while Ochako floated in the air, embarrassed. Oh, no wonder Mr. Shiko was extra naggy today. I'll help you out if you stop looking. Twice a week, 4 hours a day. Deal, Melissa said. The two shook hands while Izuku went back to looking over Ochako's gear. At the end of the day, Ochako left with pages of notes from both Melissa and Deku about what improvements needed to be done to her costume. Melissa gave it her seal of approval to make sure that these notes were seen by Ochako's costume manufacturers. Melissa seemed over the moon, skipping and twirling throughout the lab. Izuku was consuming his meals with All Might encouraging him to eat. Today was a really good day for all. More time passed and Izuku was building both his body and mind. Days were spent exercising. Air chairs during office work, crunches between shifts, and Ochako watching over him move and prepare the secondary building. All with his greatest hero encouraging him the entire time. Melissa brought him recipes to try out. Ochako even made things a little competitive. The two would train through lifting all the raw materials needed. So Deku, what made you want to do this? Guys like you are always in the lab, right? Deku whipped the sweat from his brow as he lifted more concrete packs with his hands. He dropped them to the side and turned to Ochako. That villain incident. It made me realize some things when I disappeared. He flexed his fingers and remembered Eri's face. I've never worked out before. I always reasoned that there was no point in trying. I remembered how some heroes were physically weak, but were untouched because they focused on their other talents. I was smart and that was enough. Until recently. Ochako saw his muscles tense and saw the fire in his eyes. Very admirable, Deku. You remind me how I felt before I took martial arts. He turned to her. Martial arts wasn't your thing? But with your quirk requiring you to touch things, then you'd definitely be good at it. She laughed with bashful laughter. You'd think. Heck no though. My first year in UA, I coasted off touching inanimate objects and swinging them around. It wasn't until a villain almost got me in one of the internships in my second year did I really get the message. Deku saw her lift the bottom of her shirt. A faded scar lined her side just below her ribs. A villain ambushed my friend Sue and I. Sue had the upper hand for a second, but she slipped up and got knocked out. The villain was still pretty beat up and I knew I had to float her, but the second I got close, wham. Bam. I was knocked out. Deku was sitting on a crate as she told her story. I wasn't ready and I couldn't take her down when she was injured. All that effort just for my friend to get heavily injured and me unable to finish the job. She clenched her fist in front of Deku. I'll never forget that feeling in my gut. She bapped Deku on the shoulder. So, I'm glad you chose self-improvement. Thanks, ow. Izuku said while rubbing his arm. While he finished his break, Ochako rolled up her sleeves and picked up the rest of the bricks. He suddenly understood why her punches hurt. Deku made sure to never underestimate her natural strength. No quirk was needed with what she was lifting. His days were filled with this banter, this pace. Izuku, make sure to finish up Ochako's quirk profile. Deku, you've got more rods to bury. Young Midoriya, keep going. You're almost there. On his morning walk, he really reflected on his work. Izuku didn't know why he had never tried this before. People were expecting him to do something, they needed him, they wanted to be around him. Izuku didn't know what joy it was. His best friend needed his help. A hero watching over him. His greatest inspiration actively rooting for him. For the first time in a long time, he let out a hearty laugh. What joy! What joy! To support and be supported. He could just leap in the air and... He opened his eyes when saw himself in the air, green sparks trailing behind him. His joy surged with fear as he suddenly plummeted again. All Might. What happened? Oops. It looks like your emotions got the better of you and activated the quirk. All Might said. Help me. What can I do, young Midoriya? I'm just vestige living in your mind. I can't physically catch you. Oh Fu Dash. Fear not, young Midoriya. One for all can enhance your body. Just bring out the power to a manageable level and you'll land safely. You never taught me that. You've only taught me how to exercise my body. Izuku screamed. ODMN. Izuku can feel the wind whistle in his ears, drowning out All Might's advice. His body was flopping around. The hiking trail he was using to train was far from people. The sounds of his screams would barely reach others, and it would only be after he crashed. This would be the end of the hero Izuku wanted to be before it began. What would Izuku's last thoughts be? His mother? His friends? Oh, what tears they would shed for him. If he couldn't save himself, then who could he really save? Izuku felt something else bubble from his fear, his anxiety. Anger. True anger at his weakness. An anger he's repressed for years. Anger stemming from his weakness. He had power, why is he still struggling? Something snapped in Izuku as the ground got closer and in his frustration let out a deafening scream. A loud boom filled the forest as Izuku laid in a massive crater. His arms stuck inside said crater. The green sparks lit up his body as Izuku groaned in pain and relief. He rolled onto his back to see All Might looking at him. Young man, are you okay? Did I think so? Pain rocketed through his body. Can't move though. You may have exceeded your limits for just a second. Luckily this outburst will have only numbed your body. Not breaking it. Perhaps we can include some power lifting in your regimen. Good. Izuku said. He looked at his hand and tried something. He thought of his friends and family again. The need to protect their smiles. The need to live to see it again. Green sparks lit up his arm. Alright, let's get to start on notes. Melissa tiredly drank her coffee as she heard the movers bring in the new 3D printer. She needed to get things moving with Izuku while the day was starting. If anything the past 3 months have been, it's been taxing. On the work site, everything was going really well. Uravity's costume gained a significant upgrade. People were remarking on the new jet hero that was now racing with dynamite in the air. Turns out Melissa and Izuku's notes were taken into consideration by the costume manufacturers. An interesting caveat was that if they were going to improve the entire costume, Shield Industries would be responsible for one aspect. These types of deals were common for a lot of startups. If a company gives a chance to lesser-known brands, then they will showcase one item on their clients. It was a way of giving out shout-outs to those who didn't have other means to do so. Melissa was aware, but wanted to show off just a taste of her and Izuku's genius. In the form of a nano-boost thruster. Using the same materials as her pogo stick and adjusting the design to fit in Ochako's glove, the hero was now able to use her powers in a whole new way. Let's make the thruster adjustable in any direction. Izuku said. He held onto his wrist and smiled. We should also add a boost button if she uses this for combat. Combat? Melissa asked from her computer. She looked at the design on her screen. Why combat? The hero Uravity is mostly known as a rescue hero, Most people don't care to note that she's an expert martial artist. And anyone who underestimates her and our products will really pay for it. Melissa lit up at the idea. You're right. Let's do it. She stayed up until the dead of night working on it, and Izuku had to put her to bed over and over. She never realized how often he had to nor note how easily he lifted her to do so. However, sleep was for the weak, and she needed to get to work on adding the newest addition to her lab. First the wagon, then see Izuku carrying the entire printer on his back, and finally getting him to wait. What? Melissa spat out her coffee to see Izuku carry the whole thing. His face was straining but not sweating. Melissa, where do you need the printer? She pointed at the corner of the room. He nodded and waddled to his destination. Melissa just watched him do so and sip her coffee. Izuku put the box down and looked at his hands. Just a couple sparks. This was good. All Might was right in his analog. Think of yourself as a manual car, young Midoriya. When you try to switch gears to something too high, then you'll stall the car and prevent it from moving at all. Before you put your foot on the gas, feel the tug. When you feel it, then start making your move. All Might did look unsure before. At least until he looked like someone was whispering him the lines to say the right thing. Izuku rolled his wrists. He could feel the tug, the mighty power of 2% power coursing through him. Izuku knew they had to push soon. Each passing day 2% feels more and more intense. Ares' rewind is starting to wane, and One for All will soon be back at full strength. If he wasn't going to be strong enough to use it fully when it comes back, he should at least be strong enough to carry it. Hey Melissa, did you see Uraraka's newest rescue edit? Melissa appeared right next to him with a hand on his shoulder. Hell yeah, Izuku. Look at this, people are talking about how fast she is. Look at Bakugu's dumb face. They're turning it into GIFs. Izuku shook his head at his former friend's dumbfounded expression at Uravity, beating him to a crime scene. He was heard to be ranting and rambling about her while they fought the villains. Aside from him, plenty of people were expressing their love of Uravity's new costume. Resigned gauntlets and boots were the biggest change, but also her spandex had a few more protective layers on top. Both geniuses looked proud at their first client's costume debut. Oh, this calls for a celebration. Sushi. Ramen. Oh. Out pig out night. Melissa pointed at Izuku. And don't even try thinking you can get away with your training. I've seen how much food you pack on your cheat days. You'll make tonight an exception, Katsu belly. She poked his stomach, but didn't feel the same squish as before. Her finger used to sink in his little flub. Now though, she feels some tension on the belly. Something solid. Izuku swipes her finger away. She snaps out of her fixation. I'm not one to say no to a meal. Izuku admitted. On your dime? Melissa haughtily laughed and flicked her credit card in front of his face. But of course, my dear Izuku. Mama will treat you and Uravity to dinner. Uravity? Melissa nodded. Heck yeah, Izuku. We haven't gotten this without her or your smooth tongue for letting her join us. It was a reward for saving me, Izuku stated. Melissa rolled her eyes before showing Izuku her phone. Izuku, look at this. Several agencies in the area want to talk to us. Ochako's told me that her friends were asking what made her change her costume. A little world of mouth, and now these heroes want to see us. Melissa said. Izuku's eyes sparkled and grabbed her phone. Really? Vantablack, Battle Fist, holy whoa Pinky. Melissa, this is amazing. Right. Melissa said and high-fived Izuku. The two never felt such a rush before. If we get our name out there, then by the time we're hitting our original clients, then we'll be golden. We gotta schedule these. Izuku rolled his shoulders. All right, let's do it. Melissa barely felt any time go by when she heard a tap on the window. Ochako was floating at their window with a bottle of wine. Hello, Miss Shield. Ochako, you've been a popular topic today. Melissa said as she opened the door. Ochako flipped in and turned her gravity back on. The blonde gave a few cute claps as Ochako bowed as if she stood before an audience. Yeah, I'm glad you let me test out the gauntlets before today's mission. I was able to help the others reach that falling plane. Melissa could recount the late-night news where she and Izuku were watching in awe. Dynamite had Red Riot throw him as hard as he could towards the plane. He didn't expect a hand on his back to tap him and see Uravity flying next to him. Her boots and wrists firing off white and blue light. Spinning around, Uravity managed to touch the plane just in time. Dynamite was flying behind and blasting any bits or chunks of plane that fell before it hit the citizens below. The people expected Uravity, but never in such a flashy display. Melissa recalled how she and Izuku were whooping and hollering at her rescue. In fact, all this week, people were clamoring to see the rescue hero pull out all sorts of new moves and maneuvers. Uraraka was glad for the additional training. As their test grounds were still being built, Melissa took everyone to an old beach spot. A favorite of All Might's from her father's stories. Deku seemed especially excited about this. However, they weren't there for leisure, but training. Ochako was trying to get a handle of her new jets in front of Melissa watching her and Deku, who was working out nearby. Despite doing push-ups for a straight hour, she had a sense that Deku was watching her. After all, it was his job to watch people like her. Melissa was biting her nail as Ochako struggled to fly through some of her hollow rings. There was something missing. Was it a technical issue or the skill of the user? Who was the culprit? Melissa seemed to be working on the gauntlets on her break, so Ochako sat next to Deku, who was now doing jump rope. The jets. Ochako, how are you handling them? She blew a raspberry. The boosters have too much power in them and I can't stabilize fast enough. I think that's because you're not using them right. Your pose, it's a match for all the other times you float. In that one you expect to be stable and swim in the air. Here, float me. Ochako saw him hold out his hand and rolled her eyes. Let's see what he got. Deku snickered at the floating sensation as got used to not having the floor underneath him. Ochako made herself float. She crossed her arms, giving him a challenging look. Deku muttered about the precise body positions needed to stabilize her. She watched him suddenly pull off an interesting pose. I got it. You need to make floating and flying become one move. Ochako blinked as Deku explained. I've watched you float people and yourself before and I realized two things. 1. You and whoever you touch remain stuck in pose for 1 second while you turn off the gravity. 2. You can move similar to Kabakugu. Each time he's not using his explosions, he's always making sure his next pose puts him in the right position for the explosion to launch him. Melissa's boosters work off a similar trigger. If you make the adjustment to have your pose ready, then you'll be able to use the thrusters while your quirk locks your position. Clever man, Tako thought. After the break, she tried it out and it worked. Ochako waved off the memory and held up the wine. I got some good wine to celebrate. My mom always picks this up whenever my dad finishes a huge project. Thought it'd be good to share the celebration with you. Ochako, you didn't have to. I had a whole dinner plan set up. We'd take on the town and enjoy the fruits of our elbus. Melissa said. Well, all my buddies know about you guys. I think we better celebrate before you get swamped with work. Melissa nodded and the two went walking around looking for Izuku. After all, it was a group effort. Though where would he be? If he finished his work for today, then he'd be training, but where was he training? Izuku, are you training? Where are you? She shouted in the building. I'm here. Just got out of the shower. Melissa nodded and walked while Ochako blanched. Melissa, what are you doing? Deku literally got out of the shower. Oh, it's fine. I'm used to walking in on him. Melissa said as she grasped the handle. Ochako was still stunned. You shouldn't do it. There's privacy and decency and not looking at your coworker naked. He's not naked. He's got a towel on. Melissa said as she opened the door. Ochako squealed when she looked in. Her face was aghast. Melissa snickered at her expression and turned to Izuku. No matter how long it's been, she'd always be ready to see him so wow hot. Izuku was drying off his hair while sitting shirtless and wearing some old gym shorts. Earlier, he took a little progress picture with All Might. The OFA users were admiring how much has changed in over a month. Even if All Might didn't appear in the picture, it was funny to see him do a lat spread. Yes, young Midoriya. Look how wimpy your body was before. Now stands someone ready to be a hero. Really? I suspect when One for All is back to full strength, you won't explode. How kind. Izuku said as he grabbed his towel and turned to the door. He didn't blink when he saw Melissa, but seeing Ochako's bashful gaze hit him. The three stood frozen before Izuku screamed. "What are you two doing? Uraraka, are you a perv? Why are you accusing me of being a pervert?" She covered her eyes with her hands. "Minute, I will not be accused of being the same type as Mineta." "Then why are you still peeking between your fingers?" Melissa asked. Her glasses were angled at the right angle to hide her eyes behind the light. Ochako grabbed Melissa and shook her. "I said don't accuse me." She dragged Melissa out and tossed her in the air. Luckily her quirk activated so Melissa floated in the air. Ochako turned to Deku who held his towel over his chest like a guilty maiden. I told her to stop. I didn't mean to look. You look fit as a hero. Get changed." With that she slammed the door shut. All Might looked at Izuku. "I've been meaning to ask. Why is Melissa so comfortable with you naked?" In the hallway Ochako was huffing and puffing at the whole incident. She could only rant while Melissa floated in the air. She was used to Izuku. Ever since she made a chemical remedy to dissolve clothes and accidentally spilled it on Izuku, there was nothing she would be surprised by. Melissa apologized for taking his maidenhood. She learned to hold a joke close. It was too good to give up. There was even the katsu belly joke both of them did whenever they got bloated. Today was the first time she really took note of Izuku's training. The results were surprising. He could lift one of the heaviest 3D printers with his hands, and Ochako commented on his build being similar to a hero's. It was strange. Just strange to her. Just as strange as it was to realize that Ochako had caught her princess style from the air. "Can we pretend that didn't happen?" "Sure," Melissa replied. Cool. Ochako said. The party was going to a little shop towards the outskirts of town. It was a hidden spot that Melissa and Izuku found when they first moved back after college. The population was small and it was pretty empty since a lot of the buildings are closed for holiday. Dinner had a bit of an awkward atmosphere at the beginning. It was until Melissa pulled out the wine and a few orders of sake with dinner. The mood improved as the awkwardness melted. Ochako and Izuku ended up arguing about the best rescue record while Melissa referees the debate. The mountain disaster incident had too many unknown factors and 13 pulled through. They run circles around the wild pussycats. "Uraraka, my dear friend. That is wrong and you know it. The wild pussycats have been here longer and we have the entire catalog of missing people found by them. 13 got major disasters, but day by day the pussycats are on top." Ochako slammed a hand on the table. "I trained with the pussycats and personally, they're not all that." "Those are fighting words," Deku said while leaning in. Ochako sneered and pressed her head against his antagonizing stare. "You wanna go? I tolerate Dynamite's BS all day. I'm not afraid to scrap." Melissa pushed the two apart. "Not in front of the food." The trio partied throughout the night until it was after midnight. Melissa was drunkenly being held by Ochako while Izuku was guzzling water. The other two were in a better spot than the blonde. They were all resting at a park bench with Melissa finishing off a couple bottles of water as well. Ochako was pointing at the stars with Deku. "Space missions? You were offered to go to space." "Yeah, with my whole shtick being able to float, Japan's space program reached out to me. I had to reject it though. I've always loved the stars, but I prefer being close to my family and friends. They need me here, you know?" "I get it. I couldn't think of leaving Melissa or my mom." Yeah, you don't leave me," Melissa drunkenly replied. Ochako giggled at the inventor's response. "I'd have a hard time leaving a friendship like your guys." Melissa gave thumbs up while stretching herself over the bench. "You know, I'm glad to have met you, Deku." "Me? Mitchum. I think if we met at UA, we would have been good friends. You have a steely resolve and are smart to boot. I think some of my classmates would have traded their entire savings to have you help them during their finals." Deku shook his head and crossed his fingers. "You're too kind. I mean it, Deku, you would have been great. Even if you are quirkless. I can see you being a hero." She said, "I really believe that." Melissa could feel Izuku shake and peeked from her side. Something wet plopped on his hand. Izuku! Thank you for saying that. Izuku said hushed. He cleared his throat and stood up. I'm gonna stretch my legs and use the bathroom. If Melissa is still too drunk, please take her home. Her keys in her pockets. I'm not too drunk, you dash. Melissa said, but leaned against Ochako regardless. Ochako gave him a thumbs up as Izuku walked off. Alone, Izuku wiped his eyes. Holy woe, did he not know how to take that? Izuku went to the closest public bathroom, but stopped when he saw All Might looking down an alleyway. Young Midoriya, be careful. Huh. He felt All Might's caution run through him, and he hid next to the alley corner. It was a group of men, and they looked to be surrounding someone else. They were kneeling on the ground. What do we do? Leave him. A scruffy beard guy. We put too much into him, and with Dynamite taking out our other big gun months ago, we're running out of options. A weasel. A literal weasel with human hands. Why don't we put the most useless guy and have him take on the burden? A buff with green scales guy. Yeah, we just need a proxy to enter the building. The second buff guy with purple scales. I don't need any of you guys. I can sense someone. Strong enough. The kneeling man said. His voice was raspy, stuffy, like something was caught in his throat. Begin the mission, I'll just be a moment. He will make use for sludge. Izuku covered his mouth as he saw the kneeling man tilt his head back. His jaw broke open wide as a green sludge exited his lips. The mass built up more and more until it formed jaws and eyes. It looked down the alleyway and Izuku could see his reflection in the gleam of his eyes. Oh shit. The group of men were surprised to see Izuku standing behind them. The sludge creature gave a toothy grin as it lunged. Run, young Midoriya. All Might ordered. Izuku booked it. His body ran as fast as he could. The sludge monster followed, tearing apart concrete and steel. The crew behind him nodded at each other, put on their masks and went in the other direction. Towards the building closest to Melissa and Ochako. Meanwhile, you can do what? Melissa shouted. SFH. Ochako hastened. Yes, that's my secret talent. Don't tell anyone, okay? Criminals would beat me in record time. Secret's safe with me. The two drank their waters before hearing a suspicious sound. Ochako's instincts went off as she turned. A group of men of various sizes were walking down the street. Ochako could see something shiny in their jackets. Gunmen, Ochako said. She grabbed Melissa and hid behind a car. She counted 5 men. They seemed to be looking for someone else, which would mean that there was at least one more person in the crew. Good to know the citizens are leaving us to our devices. You're sure no heroes are coming? The scruffy bearded one slapped the weasel. Of course I have. None of those flashy heroes bother patrolling this area. Especially since our big man made sure that no witnesses ever find them. Like what he's gonna do to that green-haired punk. The news was the cold water both women needed. Ochako clenched her fists. In it, I need to call the other heroes. Melissa bapped her head a few times to focus. No, we need to find Izuku. If the gunmen say their boss is busy, then we need to rescue him. Ochako gritted her teeth. If I had my equipment, then I'd take them down. Oh really? That's easy. Melissa said as she pulled out her phone. Forgot to show you the coolest aspect of those thrusters. Huh. Ochako watched Melissa type in code. A minute later, she could hear something burning through the sky. Reach out now. Ochako raised her arms and suddenly her gauntlets dropped from the sky and onto her arms. Melissa lifted Ochako's legs and her boots latched onto. She could not believe it as Melissa smiled triumphantly. Stay safe, Melissa. Uravity rolled from the car and activated her quirk and thrusters. She became a flashy blur to the gunman. Scruffy yelled as Uravity tackled him into the car. Weasel behind her raised his pistol only to see her launch herself back and slam into him. Twisting her body, she grappled him, applied her quirk, and then slammed him on the ground. Not wasting a second, she crossed her arms and fired off her grappling hooks. The two burly men held onto the cables, resisting the pull before Uravity smirked. The cables vibrated and went slack, floating in the air. The men were confused when they floated as well. Ochako yanked her arms back and sent them flying into each other. Hey, minute, where's our big gun? Scruffy aimed at her. Uravity twirled around like a dancer and sent one of the burly men at the last goon. Release! The weight returned and crushed him underneath. Weasel slithered up to her, popping out his claws. Utilizing his speed and body, Weasel unleashed a barrage of slashes at her. Uravity blocked/deflected most moves, but caught a few scratches on the cheek. This is what you get for trying to be a hero. Uravity caught his claws and head-butted him. Twice. Thrice. The weasel's snout busted with blood as he saw fires seemingly erupt around Uravity. Her grip took his gravity before she tossed him over her head and launched a devastating side kick. He squealed in pain and flew into the building. The heroine took a few deep breaths and rubbed her head. A deep rumbling alerted her and she turned her gauntlet up to the air. The heavy goons had their scales popping off. The damaged areas she inflicted broke apart to reveal shinier scales. She clicked her tongue and aimed her gauntlet in the air. A canister shot out from one of the holes. It launched itself in the air and lit up the arena in orange, red, and yellow. Melissa sat in awe at the light show. Uravity cracked her knuckles when she looked at the two muscle scalers. All right, boys, tell me, do you want to be an active or inactive crime in progress? Nearby, Izuku ran into the empty office building with the slime creature following. It swiped with wide arcs, covering as much space as they could to catch him. Izuku rolled out of the way and pushed the gas. He busted through a wall and scrambled to his feet. Young Midoriya, you're not ready. Run back to Miss Uraraka. Get help. Working on that All Might, he's just making it a lot harder. Izuku breathes. One for All is numbing him. His arms and legs are heavier, breathing was a LBR itself. He just needed a way to get to Ochako without endangering Melissa and any civilians. Take stock. What can you do? I can leap high in the air. I can harden my body to take on hard hits. This either gives me war of attrition or focuses on escape. I need to. Suddenly a bright light filled the buildings. A barrage of orange and red. The slime creature growled at the light. Izuku felt a sense of relief. Hero flares. A support tool that acts as a signal for heroes and a warning to villains. A decade ago these flares were introduced during a turbulent time for society, with the inspiration from former hero Aoyama Yuga during a riot. Like moths to a flame, heroes use the flares in dire emergencies or in areas in need of immediate aid. It also worked as a great distraction. Izuku hardened his body and jumped through the window. The slime roared in frustration at his prey escaping and chased. Izuku barely scraped the glass off when he felt something wet wrap around his leg. He turned to see the sludge grinning, pulling him in and slamming him through concrete. Izuku felt the wind leave his lungs as he laid in a pile of crushed cement. Warm blood dripped down his face. Don't worry, I can fix our body when I'm inside you. Now open up. Sludge said. It narrowed one of its tendrils to a fine needle. Izuku grunted and sat up. All Might appeared next to him. Young Midoriya. You're hurt. Quick, use One for All to run. Focus on your legs and let it push. Dice through them. Not above nor below. Legs. Izuku pushed himself up and stood. Blood poured from his head to his eyes and then over his lips. Yet his eyes seemed to almost bore a hole through the villain. He adjusted his position. His legs, arms, and head tilted in the right direction. He mirrored Uravity's launch pose. Right through. Lightning erupted from Izuku's feet as he disappeared for a second and then appeared on the others. The sludge villain couldn't even scream. His mouth and eye were gone. His body shook violently, spearing the concrete while vibrating with rage. Izuku coughed out some sludge in his mouth and saw the numerous teeth around him. His hand held the villain's eye. He was trying to catch his breath. One for All could only do so much to prepare him for that level of speed. I did it. I did it. Izuku went to run when his heart skipped a beat. Every muscle in his body screamed in torment. In such pain, it did the only thing it could do. It fell. Izuku collapsed on the floor. If he felt numb before then, this was something else. He could barely twitch without new waves of pain washing over him. It hurt to blink, to breathe, to pump his heart. He could only scream in silence the toll of his quirk. You! The sludge villain groaned. His teeth were sliding back into the body. His eye was also being carried by the sludge attached to it. I was going to be gentle, but I want you to experience being torn up from the inside. Izuku felt the slime grab his legs. It wrapped around his body, sliding into his clothes. He felt his jaw get pried open. His eyes seeing the eyes of his killer. Young Midoriya. Melissa, Ochako. I'm on my way. I can give myself one more push. Izuku thought. His thoughts were running rampant as he felt the cold take over. Really take over. It was freezing. What? The sludge villain screamed. A footstep echoed on the street and Izuku could see ice was covering it. A figure walked down the street, hands in pockets. Izuku could see a distinct scar on his face. Green and freckled. You're Uravity's friend. Pieces of boy. I'll kill him if you take another step. It squinted its eye until it widened. No, Frostburn. That's Shoto, Todoroki. Izuku barely drummed up in his head. A bright light filled the air. Izuku turned and knew whose explosion that was. Uravity was breathing as she made sure she didn't fall into the many craters. Her gear was scratched up and blood was dripping from the cuts on her face and shoulder. Dynamite blinded the duo of Scale Brothers. Come on, Riot. Spark plug. Yeah. Calm your melons, boom boom. On it, bro. Melissa watched from her hiding spot 2 bolts of lightning striking the brothers before seeing a barreling rock clothesline them both. Todoroki listened to the noises of battle and nodded. Excellent. I can just focus on you. He was in civilian clothes, so this was definitely an emergency. He clapped his hands together. He separated his hands to reveal an icy greatsword. He raised it above his head and gripped it with both hands. The blade gained a frosty flame. The temperature lowered. The sludge villain could feel its body freezing up. Bits and pieces become icicles. Phosphor blade, burning ice slash. With a slash of the sword, blue flames hit the sludge villain and froze him. Izuku let the cold take over as he passed out. Izuku barely remembered opening his eyes before seeing Todoroki staring at him. You're conscious. Ugh. He groaned. He took in a second to account for his surroundings. There was ice and he was wet. Water and some sludge mixed in. If you can breathe, you're fine. Todoroki said. Uravity should be here. He picked up Izuku with one hand and summoned an ice platform. The police can handle the cleanup. Meanwhile, Uravity was getting medical aid from Red Riot. Dude, you really need to watch your side. You really leave your left flank open. I don't need another lesson, Kiri. I need to know if my friend is fine. Bakugo scoffed while tying up the bad guys. Charge Bolt was next to Melissa. Hey lady, you're okay, right? Yes. Thank you for helping us. She said, actually Dash. Yeah, it's pretty nice to come in for the rescue. If you ever need Charge Bolt, I can give you my personal number. Oh, okay. Melissa said. She had her business card in pocket, but something tells her that he'll get the wrong message. Then she saw him. Izuku. She ran right past Charge Bolt to Todoroki, who was carrying Izuku. Izuku was fading in and out of consciousness. He did wake up when he saw Melissa sobbing over him. He took stock of his wounds. Torn muscles from OFA usage, cuts above the eyes, possibly a broken bone from hitting the concrete wall. Bakugo was silent as he looked at Izuku. Even he had some decorum around the injured. Even if it was someone as shitty as Deku. No. What happened? How are you so hurt? A sludge villain. I froze it over when I rescued him. Todoroki said. Thanks for taking care of the henchman. I was able to focus on the boss. The boss? Bakugo marched toward Todoroki. You BSRD, you think you can just get away with that? Big words, you Nepo baby. I'd think most words would be big, meathead. Huh. You want me to blow you up? The temperature dropped again. Melissa shivered as Izuku tried to clench his fists. Ochako knelt to Izuku and grabbed his hand. He suddenly felt some semblance of relief when he felt her hand hold his. the grip reassuring him and her that things were okay. The boys were still arguing, but Izuku just let himself finally pass out. He was surprised by something from his battle. The strength and speed to pierce that sludge villain. That was just 5%. Just 5%. The entire incident was the story of the week. Izuku would learn after waking up in the hospital. The biggest highlight seeing Frostburn taking action for the first time in years. Shoto Todoroki. Izuku watched his career with great interest. He was the only student outside of Bakugo to have his high school career highlighted. He placed second against Bakugo due to some inner family turmoil and learning to accept himself as his father's successor. The second sports festival ended up with Todoroki leaving for a secret mission with his father. And finally, before his debut as Frostburn, Todoroki defeated Bakugo. The ventures of his high school career paled in comparison to his main career. At Endeavor's side the entire time, the father-son duo ran the gauntlet and held the most promising statistics in hero history. Controversy would rear their heads when Frostburn got into trouble with freezing a building during an intense battle with Redestro. His ultimate move with his phosphor ability killed numerous civilians in the crossfire. He was cleared of all charges due to the extreme circumstance, but he still went away. Izuku remembered the rumors of him training around the world or that he was hiding at UA Principal Yaoyorozu's home. Izuku later learned why he got rescued by the recluse hero. The hero flare went off around Todoroki's family dinner. The number one hero Endeavor was stuffing his face with his son Shoto Todoroki was talking to an interviewer about his father's upcoming retirement and if he'll fill in the role. The father-son duo saw the signal, but only Shoto went. He was the first hero on the scene and was given orders from Uravity to save Izuku. He was actually flattered by the whole thing and the hospital stay wasn't too bad. Hopefully this wouldn't be a regular thing when he gets better at using his powers. Melissa filled in the rest of the story by saying that the sludge villain was sent to prison in his frozen tomb. It turns out they were going to rob some banks. At least that's what the group is saying. Melissa detailed that there were no major banks or anything with cash flow in the district they were at. She also said while they investigated, everyone came in when they saw the hero flare. Uravity got a lot of publicity as eyewitness accounts and shaky video showed her taking on the thugs. It was also the reason why Uraraka was visiting with a hat and sunglasses design. You know that look does nothing, right? Deku said. Hey, you don't get to judge Deku. She calmed herself down. Honestly, if I was you, I'd focus on thanking whatever deity saved your butt. I thought I was saved by the handsome hero, Frostburn. Does near death always make you sassy? Ochako blanched. Deku nodded. Yup, because they give me access to funny painkillers. Ochako adjusted her cap as she looked at Deku, all smiley and a little giggle from his reveal. Her mind was going the distance to something she found out while Melissa and Deku went to the hospital. Last night. What the hell do you mean? Ochako rolled her eyes at Bakugo's outburst. It has been like that for the past 10 years. Todoroki and Bakugo were something of bitter exes. Rivalry turned to passion with those two in UA. Mina Ishido was a big fan of the pair. Yet this tension today wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their breakup. A breakup that happened when Todoroki won the last sports festival. Drama queens they all were. Uravity, did you hear me? Ochako snapped out of her nostalgia and walked to Todoroki and Bakugo. Nah, I spaced out. Knuckles bruised and all. She laughed. Bakugo scoffed and focused on Todoroki. Todoroki fixed his hair and turned to Ochako. The hostage, your friend. I saw him punch through the sludge villain. Ochako blinked at the frozen villain behind them. Twice. Thrice. Deku punched through that? Yes. / Why are you calling him Deku? Todoroki pointed at the destroyed building next to the sludge villain. When I arrived, I saw the sludge villain cornering your friend. I was about to make my move when I saw him bust through the villain and building. And your eyes are clearly rusty, you moron. That BSDRD's quirkless. Not a lick of power in him. Bakugo said. He turned to Ochako. You've been around him. He's nothing. Ochako bit the inside of her cheek as she steps toward Bakugo. All right, you son of a beach, I'm not going to let you dash. A thick, but clear ice wall erected itself between the two. Uravity. Please don't bother. Todoroki said. I was mildly curious about his powers. After he used it, his body gave out. He doesn't have a quirk, you empty-headed a-hole. Why the hell are you bothering actual heroes from our jobs with dumbass questions? Bakugo said. His mouth broke into a slow sneer. I think you're just trying to stall for time so you don't return to Daddy's side. Todoroki flinched before tilting his gaze at Bakugo. He turned his back and walked to the building. That wall had reinforced concrete and steel bar frames. You've got to be really strong to bust through it. Ochako and Bakugo followed. Todoroki stepped on the broken bits of wall. He lit his right hand with his frozen flame. The light illuminated the slimy destruction that followed. Clean-up crews on their way, so I'll be quick. There. Bakugo and Uraraka's eyes widened. At the back of the building was a deep crater and lighting patterns burned on the way. The splatter of sludge indicating something shot through it. Ochako was hit with so much confusion. Something did shoot through the sludge villain, but it being Deku, he was quirkless. He is quirkless, right? All the same thoughts were running through Bakugo's, but his hands were sparking. Todoroki, you're not implying my friend is Dash. Hold on, I'm not accusing him, he's done nothing so far. I'm just curious since this wouldn't be the first person we thought of as quirkless and yet. The implications were clear. Ochako felt like she, Bakugo, and Todoroki were standing at the crossroads. Todoroki, do not go there. Ochako said. This and that are completely different. If you're so sure then I'll back off, but pay attention, Uravity, pay close attention. Todoroki released a frosty fog and disappeared into the fog. When it cleared, he vanished. Still loves that if a exit, don't he? Why are both of you so dramatic? Ochako pondered. Bakugo and Ochako looked at each other. What were the others' thoughts? What did this mean going forward? Bakugo didn't say anything and walked off. She did see him trace the lightning pattern as he left. Ochako memorized the scene in her mind and went straight to Deku himself. Torn muscles, lacerations on the body, and hairline fractures on his leg bones all make sense in the attack. She glances at his arm. The little scars barely visible, he did take damage from that villain. But looking at these injuries from the side of a quirk recoil and then, Deku, do you remember much from your fight? Anything you can share with me? Deku looked at her confused. His eyes seemed to drift to the side. She snuck a quick glance, but didn't see anything. I don't know. Deku admitted. He looked at his hands. The truth is that everything caught me off guard. From being thrown to freezing, I have no idea what I did to survive. I'm sorry. He's not lying, but he's evading the full truth. Ochako looked away. This was her friend. She knew enough about him to know his sincerity. What could she do? Deku, if you ever do remember, please don't feel afraid to talk to me. She plastered a smile on her face. This was her friend. Not a criminal, nothing like those men from last night. If there is a secret, he'll share it. Though if things end going south, she can at least protect him. Right now he just needed to get better and she needed to get back to work. Uravity's needed. Ochako left without much fanfare and Izuku sighed. He looked at All Might who was sitting on a chair with a sorrowful look. Oh young Midoriya, I didn't think we'd encounter a villain so early. I thought we'd get to see you pull off a smash first. I wish I could buy you a cake. Izuku slumped against his pillow. It's fine All Might. I just need practice and lots of it. A robbery that involves something as powerful as that sludge creature means that any major crimes are going to call in even stronger quirks. I need to be ready. You say that, but you're injured. Young Eri was familiar with pain and yet even she knew the risks of training after such an event. I'm not saying I'm ignoring her warnings, she put a lot of those in her journal, I just mean that I need something new. I tackled that villain and then collapsed. He remembered that feeling he was going to die. If he hadn't been saved by Todoroki, then this great power would have been snuffed. Eri's face flashed in his mind. The very thought of letting that girl down made him grip the sheets tighter. He was going to be a hero, he needed to be a hero. He needed. Mom. The door opened to reveal his mother standing at the doorway with tears in her eyes. Izuku. This was the first time Izuku had seen his mother since he moved with Melissa into the city. Unfortunately, life and a few disasters prevented the mother-son duo from reuniting. Izuku couldn't help but feel a little teary-eyed to see his mother running at him to hug him. "Oh Izuku, Melissa told me everything. All these incidents and oh my baby, I thought you were a goner." "Ah come on, I'm pretty tough." Inko blinked at seeing her son's smile. A level of confidence. He sighed and hugged her back. The two needed some time to talk. To just unwind. "How are you?" Outside the room, Melissa watched the family talk. She rolled her shoulders and walked off, out towards the park. Melissa spent enough time with Izuku and shed enough tears about her friend's condition. She clenched her fists as she thought about that night. Hiding by a car while her friend fought by herself and her partner nearly dying, Melissa felt this disgusting feeling wrap around her heart. What could she do? Could this dream of theirs cost the life of her best friend? She felt herself being dragged by those questions when she heard a loud buzz next to her. She turned to see a floating metal ball in front of her. "Finally! There you are." Melissa tapped her red bracelet and formed a bat. A method of self-defense she gave herself after the first incident with Izuku. She swung at the ball. People turned to see Melissa trying to whack it out of the sky. She chased it into an empty clearing. Wait. Melissa shield, I'm a friend. Or at least I hope to be friends. Waff. The ball lit up and a hollow projection shined. A woman stood with her hands on the hips. Pink hair and dreads with the biggest feature being her eyes. Melissa recognized the crosshair pupils. May Hatsum. Hey, getting recognized by the daughter of David Shield, that's an honor if I ever thought of it. Melissa internally winced at the mention, but carried on. Shield, I've heard through the grapevine that you did some work with my babies. In fact, my favorite client Uravity personally gave me your notes. Oh, did she? Melissa would have liked to have known that Ochako did so. In the world of support gear, anyone who was anyone would know of May Hatsum. A once-in-a-generation talent, May was responsible for leading the world of support gear into a new era of quirk capability. Melissa heard about her accomplishments by the time she left I-Island and would miss the chance to meet her when she left the island due to unforeseen circumstances. If Izuku followed heroes, then Melissa was a fanatic for inventors. May nodded. And I have to say that your design ideas were really good. Inspiring even. I watched the footage of the equipment flying through the air. Do you know how many people can code the right programs, facilitate practical rockets that can make the journey, and land without injuring others? Not that many? May laughed and pointed her holographic finger right at the blonde's face. Exactly. Not that many. With both your inventions on Uravity and the publicity garnered by her fight, I want to meet you and whoever you work with. I need to know what makes you function, what gives you such ideas. Melissa seemed hesitant. You really want to see me? Of course. If you don't believe me, that's fine. We are pioneers in our own right, and whatever that path takes us, it'll be our choices. However, I did want to extend an invitation, a meeting of sorts. The ball opened up and pulled out a letter. An invitation. I want to bring you to UA. Meet me and my partner Momo Yayorozu. Before the new Hero/Support Festival and attend. Melissa's eyes widened. The Hero/Support Festival was the second biggest event for people in her field. Island's exhibitions were the only event on the planet that surpassed them. Companies from hundreds of companies apply and only a few get in. It's even stiffer competition for small businesses like theirs to compete with the corporations. You can't be serious. Like a heart attack, I should know, my pacemaker accidentally caused a few. May said, all right then, me and my partner Izuku Midoriya gladly accept. Who dat? Days later. He looked at time on his watch. They were about 2 hours away from their destination. Izuku stared at the watch and noted the craftsmanship. For a watch that was built in a dystopian future, they sure made it pretty fashionable. It's a shame that whatever mechanism allowed him to travel back and forth burned away on his last trip. He'd like to know if Eri was getting better. Izuku, you ready? Yeah, I'm fine. Izuku was struggling with his tie until Melissa turned him around and started doing it for him. Geez, dude, I thought you were getting better at ties. We need to be great, perfect even. No, even better than perfect. Perfecter, I'm nervous, Mel. I mean Yue. After explaining who Izuku was to Mei, the invitation was extended to him personally as well. Today was going to be a showcase, and Melissa has been spending the past 4 days going crazy with every complete design, which led to Midoriya helping her get ready. A little help from his mom helped her pick the right outfit. The train ride was quiet, but both knew what they had to do today. The two were wearing business suits. Izuku with standard suit and a dark green tux. Melissa had a navy blue outfit with a light blue tie. Though Izuku's hands were wrapped in bandages due to some residual damage. Let's go over everything. Presentation? Yup. Suitcase with all our current designs. Yup. Business cards? Breakfast? Breakfast? Melissa asked. Izuku held up 2 breakfast bars. Courtesy of one Inko Midoriya who was spending the day at their lab, prepping dinner. Melissa sighed in relief as she ate her food. Today was an important day. The most important day really. And they were not going to fumble it. Izuku himself was giddy. All Might looked at the building in front of them whistled. It's been a long time since I walked those halls. To think I would one day get to walk through them again. It makes me feel nostalgic. I once imagined Melissa to study here. An old pipe dream of having some family walk-through. There was this wave of regret. He could see the old hero watch his niece from his side. It was a bit haunting. Izuku just nodded with the sentiment, but there was also something he was gonna get out of this. The crumbled piece of paper in his pocket. He was gonna get aid from Erasehead. He needed aid in his powers and skills. With the Eraser's abilities, he'd be the perfect teacher to follow. Eri wrote it so. There should be plenty of time between them and the staff. Right? He shook his head to see Melissa's hands shaking. He slipped his fingers to hers and intertwined them. She gasped before realizing it was him. He had a brave smile on his face. Melissa took a deep breath and squeezed his hand with reassurance. Regardless of what happened today, they're pursuing their dream. If UA doesn't work out, then fine. It's not the end of the world. Right? Melissa, you're muttering. She pinched him on the side. Wonder who I got that from? The two walked hand in hand for a moment before entering the building. UA was a treasure trove of quirks and technology. Izuku could only watch as he saw so many students. Emitters, transformers, mutations, this was his heaven. How did they work? What were their limits? How were they used? Melissa could only take in the amount of tech being used. Holopads, flying carts, ever-changing windows, climate controllers, and even fast tracks for speedy students to use. There was so much to take in. What a paradise! The two said out loud. Yeah, it'd fit you two nerds easily. The two turned around and saw Uravity walking with 2 heroes. One was Red Riot, Ejiro Kirishima, and the other was Pinky the Acid Queen. Oh, it's you green dude. Mina, it's the green dude. You know me? Izuku asked with a shaky voice. From the sludge incident. Kirishima flexed with a flashy smile. Hell yeah, but not the full picture. We jog around the same parts. I know you're the dude that talks while jogging. Izuku's brain short-circuited when he finally discovered the memory of the red-headed jogger. Usually he talks to All Might while running. He almost gasped in horror at the thought. Oh, I'm so sorry. I remember you giving me encouragement. Thank you so much. Red Riot rubs the back of his head flattered. Nah, you're okay, man, don't worry too much about it. Ah, you're adorable. Pinky said. Red Riot and Pinky the Acid Queen were part of the same class as Ochako. Red Riot works as a current partner of Dynamite and Chargebolt. Meanwhile, Pinky the Acid Queen worked at UA as the art teacher, replacing famed R-rated hero Midnight after years of dedicated service. While not the path of fame as other classmates, Izuku was a major fan of their charity and activism. Uravity nudged both of them. Red Riot and I are here to see the principal. Pinky, don't you have a class? Pinky was seemingly staring at Ochako's gaze and then Melissa's sudden relaxed posture. Melissa to Izuku holding hands. Izuku's gaze to Ochako. Nope. Uravity internally groaned at her friend's behavior. She knows that look in her eyes. I know you two are here to see Hatsum. Yes, that's right. Thanks for showing her my notes, Ochako. I would have been more cautious if it was anyone else. Uravati waved her hand. Hatsum is the craziest inventor I know. You might find yourself out of your depth. Melissa put a hand to her chest. I can match it. Kirishima whistled. Huh, never seen anyone actively trying to match Hatsum's energy. Mina shook her head. I'd pay a lot of money to see that happen. The girl runs me ragged. Uravati snapped her fingers and got everyone's attention. There were students staring at the group of them. Some of the students were gawking at Red Riot or Uravati. A small group of admirers seemed focused on Melissa. A couple jealous stares were looking at Izuku, who was still holding Melissa's hand. He let her hand go and the stares slightly lessened in intensity. Melissa didn't realize how sweaty her hand got since they held hands. Let's go to the main lab, Hatsum should be there. The group walked off as the crowd of students watched them. A few were going fan crazy and more were wondering who the two new adults were. As the group walked the gigantic halls, Izuku slowed down to Pinky's side, the art hero looking out the window. Hey, what brings you my way, green man? Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya and I had some questions about your staff. Someone actually. I don't know. We just met, can't even call you bud. Pinky said. Any reason why? Izuku carefully thought of his excuse. What could the reason be? I'm a major fan of Eraserhead and I wanted to know if you could help a guy meet his hero. Eraserhead, huh? Pinky said. He doesn't have that many vocal supporters. Really, he's supposed to be niche. Please, Ms. Acid Queen, I really need to see him and at least thank him. Pinky looked at Izuku, then in other directions. Behind, left, right, and above. Sure, why not? Pinky said. Izuku blinked. Just like that? The hero winked at him. I'll take you to the staff room after your meeting with our Prince Press. Cool. Cool. Izuku said as Pinky walked ahead. She whistled a tune as she walked up next to Red Riot. Izuku looked up at All Might, who seemed uneasy. It shouldn't have been this easy, right? He barely caught a glimpse of some familiar messy hair. Uravati stopped the group at some large metal doors. All right, team, had some meeting here. Thank you, Uraraka. Melissa said as she went to open the door. Izuku followed close behind her. Uravati had sudden realization. Wait dash. Melissa opened the door and boom. Smoke and heat pushed the duo. Uravati froze in her position while Red Riot and Pinky held scorecards on the explosion. 7 and 6 out of not bad? Melissa rubbed her head and found her pressed nose to nose with the very woman she was planning to see. Miss Shield. How wonderful it is to see you. May said and held a hand out. Melissa saw that she was covered in oil, dirt, and dust. A wave of dark dust caused her to cough. It's a pleasure to meet you too. The two shook hands. By the way, didn't you say you brought someone with you? Where are they? Oh, he should be? Izuku? Izuku, where are you? A rough cough was heard behind her. The blonde turned to see her sitting on the back of Izuku's head. May sat on top of his thighs. Get off me. He grunted. Izuku, I'm so sorry. Melissa got off him. May pushed herself off as well, but took a second to feel his thigh. Oh my. How sturdy. Huh. Melissa and Izuku said. May grabbed Izuku by the back of his shirt, picked him up, and tried dusting him off. She looked at his wrists. May tilted her head questioningly and made a little photographic note in her head. Sturdy. She fixed her hyperfixation on Izuku. Ooh, the build is definitely hero quality. Are you looking for a fitting? Hey. Melissa pulled Izuku aside and Red Riot caught him. That's my partner and I won't let him be manhandled. May raised her arms in surrender. All right, you got me. Sorry, didn't mean to. He's just built really similar to a lot of my other clients. I can tell that his quirk must generate a lot of energy, especially in the limbs. The muscle density between that and your abdomen is noticeable. Izuku snapped out of his confusion and sweated. All Might covered his mouth in shock as well. Uravati seemed very interested in that tidbit as she looked at Izuku. Actually, Ms. Hatsum. May, less letters to use. Okay, May, I don't have a quirk. Izuku said. Melissa gave him a thumbs up while May stared at him with that blank expression and smile. I worked out for this. Red Riot whistled in approval. Pinky turned to Red and looked back at Izuku. New dots to connect. I seem to be mistaken again. Momo must be right. A 3-hour nap wasn't enough to suffice for a 3-day extension being awake. It should have been 3 hours and 15 minutes. May said. No, I said 8 to 9 hours, my dear May. A voice behind them said. Walking out of the smoke stood Momo Yaoyorozu. Izuku could hardly believe his eyes. Creati, the hero with limitless options. He remembers her details as well. Debuting at graduation alongside other Class A students, this hero was known as the Endless Armory. Her refinement with her quirk is renowned as the best in the world. Converting 1 gram of fat to railguns, her quirk had no limitations. She was the leading expert in reconstruction, and her charity work with the Todoroki family led her to pursuing education in her career. A heavy rumor within chat rooms was that Momo had to go through several trials to be given the title of principal. While still a hero, Creati makes sparse appearances. In truth, she focused in other areas around the same time Todoroki walked away from the spotlight. Impressive. I didn't think you'd include the rumor tidbit. Momo said to Izuku. He clamped his hands over his head. Melissa looked like she was about to die when Momo laughed. Chill, you two. Momo's not so above it all. Uravity said. The two sighed in relief as Momo gestured to them. Come, you two. May, dear, clean yourself up before you go to my office. May saluted, but saw Momo turn to Pinky, mouthing to help her. She didn't even bother fighting when Pinky pushed her to the baths near the lab. Uravity, Red Riot, I believe you're needed to give for our hero classes. Melissa Shield, Izuku Midoriya, welcome to UA. Please enjoy your stay. Oh, we will, Melissa said. She picked up the suitcase and followed Momo. Red Riot sked and walked down the hall while waving bye to everyone. Ochako went over and patted Deku on the shoulder. A smile offering to meet up afterwards. Izuku waved his friend goodbye. He turned to catch up to Momo and Melissa when he heard a rough cough. Hello. The coughing continued and Izuku couldn't ignore his instincts. He made a mental note of where the principal's office is before walking to the noise. He sees something slithering in the next room. It was shaky and coughing. Hello. Are you okay? He walked in and picked up the yellow slithering thing. It was a sleeping bag, a yellow sleeping bag. When Izuku entered the dark room, he didn't see All Might pointing behind him. On instinct, he swung his arm. His arm was caught by something soft yet durable. It wrapped around his arms and Izuku found himself being flung across the room. Before he slammed into the wall, he channeled One for All and took the brunt of the action. He didn't hesitate getting into position and channeled 4% of his power. Lightning scorched the floor as he got ready to charge. All he needed to do was give himself a little push. A flash of gold cut the dark and Izuku fell flat on his face. He tried to recover, to sweep, and kick his opponent. They jumped over his legs and threw them through another binding knot. Curious. You know, if it wasn't for Ashido's whistle, I'd be caught off guard about any skilled stalkers. He felt the pull in his body, his quirk was back. He swung his leg this time and sent the assailant flying. Izuku felt whatever binded him let him go and he ran forward. Whoever this was wasn't going to stop me. Young Midoriya. Stop, it's him. Another flash of gold and All Might disappeared. Izuku didn't let his momentum get the better this time. He used all of his natural strength to catch himself and then restart his sprint. Sloppy technique. The attacker said. The familiarity of his voice caught Izuku's attention before he stood face to face with Eraserhead. Gold eyes shimmering in the dark. What brings you here, quirkless man? Izuku gulps. How long has Eraserhead been aware of him? Enough to learn that he's quirkless, and yet he charged with One for All. He grabbed the paper in his pocket and opened it. Red eyes, need eye drops. He shouted. Eraserhead glared at him and his hair started to float. What the hell is that supposed to be? Izuku almost squealed in terror at Eraserhead bearing down on him and looked at the paper. The roof is where I pick it up. During the rain. He looked at paper, confused by the jumbled mess, but looked to see Eraserhead looking at him. The anger was a little less present in his eyes. How do you know that phrase? You gave it to me? Eraserhead looked at the paper and snatched it out of Izuku's hand. He pulled out a small ultraviolet light pen. He reads the message over and over again. Sighing, he drops the paper at Izuku's feet. I'm supposed to help you? Yes? I think. Izuku got up and Eraserhead crossed his arms. Izuku noted that he wasn't missing an eye and that his scars were less pronounced. You've encountered a space-time anomaly and/or quirk user. You found me at that time, and when you said you needed my help they gave you a code back, right? Izuku nodded. DM it. I wish I never thought of doing that. Eraserhead said. It's usually illogical to assume such things, but in this world you can't expect anything else. Why are you here and why do you need my help? You'll help. If I had to send from one universe to another, it would be important. Izuku got up and faced Eraser. The two stood eye to eye. The bored yet focused look of Eraser connected with Izuku's youthful fire. I want you to train me on how to fight with my quirk. Eraser looked at him. Eyes focused on him and body language reading indecipherable. Pass. Melissa sat nervously in front of Momo at the principal's office. She could see numerous awards and credentials alongside degrees. Photos of her class were on her desk, and Melissa could see the personal weapon case Momo had on the side. So, Momo started. So, Melissa said as she sweated. Momo smiled and created a pipe in her hand. Holding her finger at the end of it, she formed tobacco leaves and lit the tip of her finger with a tiny flame. She took a bit of a puff and offered to Melissa. No thank you. Good on you. You'd be surprised by how long it took to make a pipe before. She took another puff. If we're both waiting for our partners, then I'd like to discuss something with you. With me specifically? Momo nodded. I've kept an eye on you since May brought you up during our college years. She went on and on about the great Melissa Shield and the legacy she left behind at Island. She respects you. Really? Melissa questioned. May Hatsum was able to make tidal waves in the industry. Melissa did not, and she was in the game longer than her. How could she really be that impressive? Yes, even I was confused by it. I understand your name. Your father was commissioned by my family once to develop our home security system. Even a fraction of that genius is worth looking at. So what I want is to understand you, who you are, and why my partner holds such affection for you. Melissa swallowed nervously. I don't know either. I've been seen as a genius for years, and I spent my life trying to live up to that title. Yet when I look back, I don't see much of my accomplishments on the level to garner Hatsum's attention. Anyone's attention, really. The floor began to swirl around her as Melissa felt something she repressed for years come up. The people whispering behind her back. Wondering if she was truly like her father. If she was anything like how her father was currently. The professors giving her a second glance at her work. Yet under Momo's gaze, the exposure made her remember more about that day. HNGFFS, screaming and blood. She remembered one of her blueprints being soaked with blood. I've always strived to do my best. I want my inventions to work. To help people. Melissa started. I intend to lead with my company a new technology to keep up with the versatility of quirks. Momo didn't look too impressed. Not yet anyways. Everyone here wants to help people and everyone wants to surpass others' quirks. I'm not seeing what makes you stand out. Melissa clenched her fists as Momo continued. I'm aware of what the former great David Shield did and how that might have affected you. A sharp pain in her side. I don't let the past define me. Momo tilted her head. Really? From what it looked like, that was the reason why you disappeared for a couple years after graduation. You only made a few sparse appearances since then. In fact, your startup company has been your first major move since the incident. From anyone else's position, it would seem you just got over that hurdle. Melissa felt the pressure build on. Momo Yaoyorozu, the principal of the finest hero school, was interrogating her. Why is she judging her character? She was an inventor, her past didn't define her. You also just admitted that you didn't have any notable accomplishments. You have ambition yet no drive. You claim to defy your past but nothing to show for it. You've done work for one hero, and as impressive as they are, there are 10 more impressive displays from others. Momo snapped her fingers and Melissa saw the weapons on display change shape. They busted out of their case and flew right to Momo's arm. Melissa watched the metal meld into her shape. Seamlessly. She was in awe as Momo flexed her fingers. May worked on this for months, and you know when she did it? Senior year during our tenure in UA. Senior year? Melissa remembered how long she slaved over the design that went with Uraraka. So many sleepless nights and failed experiments, and there was someone who enhanced her end goal years ago. I'll make my feelings clear. I don't believe that you've got anything worthwhile. Not to me or... She paused and lifted her metallic hand. A light construct formed in her palm and expanded. A foot stepped through and a clean May Hatsum walked through while drying her hair. May, Melissa said. May smiled sadly and turned to Momo. You're not being honest with her, are you? You wouldn't, Momo said. Her playful smile gone and suched with the look of an ice queen looking down at her prospects. And what about your partner? Where is he? Melissa swallowed nervously. Where was Izuku? Meanwhile, Izuku was handling another UA staff member. Pass? What do you mean pass? Izuku asked. Eraserhead put down his phone and walked past Izuku. I have classes to teach, responsibilities outside of school to do, and the last thing I need is a 26-year-old liar asking me to train him. Eraser walked on. You parade as quirkless, hiding power, and now what? You want to finally train? I can't work with someone who just decides to be a hero. Izuku clenched his teeth. I made a promise, Eraser, to you and your ward, that I would enter this power. Izuku charged up 2% of his power and shifted his food. A few cracks on the ground webbed across the floor. Eraser raised an eyebrow while looking back. Izuku dropped his jacket and let one for all flash before his eyes. I'm going to fulfill that promise and you're gonna help me. Eraser cracked his neck and kicked the door closed. The boom echoed as Eraser weaved his scarf around him. You're new to your quirk. Barely able to use even a fraction of it. Eraser said, take it from me, you're not the first to ask for my help and you won't be the first I reject. All Might stood next to Izuku. Young Midoriya, I've seen Aizawa fight. I'll aid you in this battle. Let's do it together. Right. Izuku said and charged. Eraser ducked under his arms and jabbed him in the ribs. One to the ribs. Twice to the face. A kick in the sternum. These moves knocked Izuku to the ground, but he knew how to harden his body. Red Riot had a form known as Unbreakable. Apply the quirk to the whole body and every bit will work. Izuku knew he had to follow a similar principle. It's what stopped Eraser from knocking him out so quickly. Still, he never expected the blows to be so heavy. Eraser rolled his fists as he watched Izuku get up. Not bad, but not good enough. If you haven't given your all until now, then you shouldn't bother now. I never had the chance. Izuku growled. Should he reveal one for all? No, if he hasn't shared it with Melissa, then there's no way he'd ever tell Eraser. Not until he agrees to train him. Watch his hands, young Midoriya. If he knows what he's weaving, then you'll know where his scarf will be. Focus, Izuku. He muttered. Feel the pull and shift my actions to the right limb. With his limited combat training Izuku got from All Might, he tried to box. Eraser didn't even flinch at the strength he was pushing. Izuku gritted his teeth and tried pushing harder. Eraserhead was an underground hero and his current information was something that took Izuku months to find. He initially felt worried about his quirk. He had the power to stop quirks from working. Though now he knew his mistake. Eraser evens the playing field, the biggest threat was his combat mastery. He deflected every single one of Izuku's punches, grabbed his wrist, and kneed him in the stomach. Izuku could barely catch his breath when Eraser wrapped his scarf around him. Flex. A grunt of effort and the scarf unraveled. Eraser looked at Izuku curiously. He seemed to be steaming. The room was getting hotter. Izuku grunted. His arms were twitching violently. He could hear the muscles tearing themselves apart. Young Midoriya, stop using one for all. You need to recover. Not yet, he said. Izuku stared at Eraser with his crazed eyes. I need to prove myself. Young Midoriya. Izuku shut All Might out as he increased the power to 4%. He threw one punch at Eraser and the gust was enough to blow him back. Eraser found himself sweating as he saw Izuku walk towards him. Izuku charged up to a full 5%. His body was screaming. The muscles were starting to strain and tear once again. He zipped past Eraser and appeared behind him. He held his fist close. Eraser barely activated his quirk when Izuku slammed him in the back with a punch. Spark flew as he felt spit fly from his mouth and get knocked into the wall. Arch! He shrieked and charged. The lightning scorched the ground before his body suddenly felt off. Eraser's golden eyes gazed over him. Without a second delay, he grabbed Izuku by the throat and hopped in the air. He threw his scarf to the ground and with a mighty yank, he slammed Izuku on the ground. You passed. Eraser said. Izuku could only groan in confusion. I'll train you. Why? Izuku wheezed. Eraserhead stood up and patted the dust off him. He picked up the piece of paper off the floor and pulled out his ultraviolet light. He shined a light on the piece of paper. There was a hidden message. To the Aizawa reading this, make sure this guy can use his quirk creatively before you agree to anything. Make sure he isn't expecting everything to be given to him so easily. Eraserhead UD-. Izuku groaned. Aizawa chuckled and leaned against the wall. Call me whatever you want, but you're the one who wants help. Also try to be less suspicious if you want to see someone like me. Ashido is very familiar with my fanbase. You acted like you would try something unsavory. Aizawa said. Izuku felt a little irked. I'm not that kind of fan anymore. Of course you're not. I'm more of an All Might fan. Izuku said. All Might turned away like a shy maiden at that admission while Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Vintage hero, I can admire that. Aizawa cracked his neck. It's been a minute since I've had someone force break out of my binding techniques. Your power isn't the most conventional when it comes to strength. No, that's why I want you to teach me. To handle my power or to fight so I can use my power more efficiently. No sheet. Just before I cut off your power, I saw how your body was shaking. You reached your physical limit and not the quirk's right. Izuku nodded. Aizawa went on his phone and summoned a few bots to come by. Don't worry, I'll wipe their memory of this incident and keep your little secret safe. A quirkless man like you has probable cause to keep this a secret from others, right? Yes, sir. I can't control this power yet, and until I do, I can't trust myself giving this secret to others. Villains could use it as an opportunity to strike. Izuku said before Aizawa chopped him on the head. Oh, look who's getting big in his britches. Aizawa said. You haven't even worn any spandex. Any real villains will take advantage that you're weak, not because your power is anything to ride home yet. My first years could take you on. Izuku's eye twitched at the insinuation. He calmed down and bowed before Aizawa. I'm in your care, I will do my best to retain all that you teach me. Aizawa punched his head and had Izuku on the ground. Lesson 1. Expect the unexpected. Heroes have all sorts of random things happen. Even if it's to show respect, don't let yourself show any openings. All Might tried patting Izuku on the back. Ah, he's got a point about young Midoriya. I'm sure you'll adjust quite well to Aizawa. He's similar to a friend of my MSDers. Oh, the bones I broke with him. Izuku smiled and got up. He dropped his jacket and got into a stance. All right then, why don't you give me some examples? I'm a student that learns through trial and error. Aizawa barely cracked a smile as he tugged at his scarf. Most people with developed frontal lobe would stop to think logically before challenging a superior opponent. You, however, just seem crazy enough to be a hero. Just. He pulled out his phone and put it down for 15 minutes. You have until the end of this timer to do your best. Without your quirk. Young Midoriya, I may have given you the basics of combat training when we were testing your quirk, but maybe this isn't right, Izuku charged in. Oh yeah, fine. Just ignore the voice in your head telling you not to challenge the brawling homeless man. I know how skilled he is from the future. Aizawa grinned as he landed the first punch on Izuku's face. In the meantime, Melissa faced Momo and Mei. The three women feel something shake in the room as Melissa grabs her suitcase. If Izuku wasn't here, then she'll do it herself. She'll do what her Uncle Might does and smash through these obstacles. You think I'm all ambition and no action? Melissa tapped a few buttons on the suitcase. Don't think you're the only one who did research on the other Yaoyorozu. I know of your reputation from my partner. The Iron Queen. The perfectionist heroine. Not one step out of line or you cut them off. Momo only smirked at her nicknames. Mei tilted her head. She never heard these nicknames before. Then again, she didn't know that some of her apprentices got married. Melissa tapped her bracelet and it turned into a red-wrapped bat. She pointed it to Momo and Mei. I am good enough to stand next to your standards. Yamamo, we can't fault her spirit. I can feel chills and inspiration. Look at this bat. The transformation sequence is 0.01 seconds faster than my weapon deployment. Plus the material doesn't look like anything I've developed. Momo raised an eyebrow. The elements of the world were in the palm of her hand, yet of all the things she's created, Melissa's material was something else. Melissa snapped her fingers and the suitcase broke into several pieces. Similar to her bat, the pieces reassembled them into various shapes: drones, a medical bed, and funnily enough a shield. Momo raised an eyebrow while Mei was completely struck with love for these designs. Oh my goodness! Your babies look amazing! What do they do? Can they fly like Uravity's gauntlets? What features can you cram into these small shapes? Melissa smirked at seeing the inventor's approval. Momo, on the other hand, watched with little interest. She snapped her fingers and the inventions came to life. The medical bed opened the case to reveal supplies and necessary equipment. The drones flew around the room, streaming videos directly to Melissa's feed. The shield grew to the size of her and reinforced itself. Flashy, she said. Melissa tried to let her confident facade stay standing. But nothing new. One question, could you repair any of these if they were damaged? I'd hardly say they get damaged, but I'm positive that anything you destroy I can repair. Good. Momo walked up and held out her hand. Mei's eyes widened. Momo, wait. Melissa watched as Momo created a tiny disc in her hands. She tossed it in the air and electric pulses through it. The drones flying through the air fell to the ground and cracked. Melissa is stunned when she sees the medical bed shut down as well. The lights shut down. Finally, she turned to the shield. In the world of quirks, technology is always one step behind. For every scrap of metal forged into a blade, a scrap of miracle is born twice over. Heroes and the public cannot blindly rely on flashy technology when it can be so easily disabled. Momo held out her right hand and created a metallic hilt similar to a knight's blade. Only there was no blade. Mei crossed her arms and turned to Melissa. The blonde was sweating. This meeting wasn't an invitation. It was a test. After all, small tech businesses would sacrifice their very passions and goals to enter UA's Hero Support Festival. Mei may have held true affection for Melissa, but the one to truly judge her creations was Momo Yaoyorozu. Momo clicked the button on the hilt and red energy erupted from the hilt. It stabilized before taking the shape of a knight's blade. With a few quick slashes, the Melissa-approved shield fell into metallic ribbons. Melissa could only slump back into her chair as she witnessed all of her designs get destroyed. Momo had a point. Quirks were ever evolving, ever improving. What can take her years could be born by tomorrow afternoon. What was the difference? She turned to Mei. The pink-haired mechanic was already taking notes, seeing the flaws in which Melissa thought were perfect. The designs were perfect in her eyes. They had to be. Her inventions never saw the light of day until they were perfect. Mei looked at Melissa while Momo scoffed. Perfect? Did you really say perfect, Miss Shield? Why, yes. Momo, I think you made your point. Mei said. No, my dear Mei, I don't think I have. Momo said. You called me the perfectionist heroine. That's a title only known to those that have given up on seeing my flaws. Perfection is meant for the inadequate. Perfection is a term meant for the blind. Perfection is giving up on what can be improved. Melissa gazed at Momo, eyes confused and despondent. But when do I stop? When is it enough? If you're asking, then you're not ready. Momo said. She turned to May and silently apologized. Your faith in Ms. Shield has been misplaced, May. If she comes here with no fire and relies on perfect designs to get her through, then she has no business being here. Melissa saw May look down. Disappointment. That was the look her professors had, her old friends had, what the world had. She deserves this. The door then burst open. Momo and May turned to see Izuku running in, sweating and with torn clothes. Izuku, Melissa said. Sorry I'm late. I got caught up after seeing a quirk user's ability and got caught in the blast radius. Izuku tried to brush it off, but he stopped when he saw Melissa's glare. It was so cold, and it didn't help that Momo and May were giving him a similar look. He could almost read Melissa's thoughts about his arrival. Momo didn't look impressed to see him, and May looked disappointed at him for a different reason. He looked and saw all their showcases disabled and destroyed. Melissa, I'm sorry. He started, but Momo held up her hand to silence him. We were finishing up here. Melissa Shield, Izuku Midoriya, I'm sorry but I don't believe either of you can dash. Wait, May said. She stood in front of Melissa and Izuku. Holding her arms out, she grabbed onto Melissa's wrist and held up her bracelet. She's impressed me enough. I think they both deserve a chance. May? Melissa asked. Momo raised an eyebrow. May, my friend, you cannot be serious. Are you doubting my eye, Momo? From what I recall, you were chastising the nickname of the perfect heroine. Do you think your judgment is really so sound when it goes against my own? May's expression turned serious as she stood in front of Momo. Genius is not without flaws or chances. I personally picked Shield for the potential she brings. You, as an educator, should understand what it means to cultivate potential. Momo looked at the destroyed shield and the disabled support items. Then she glanced at the red bat in Melissa's hands. Then she spotted Aizawa standing out in the hall with an eye on Izuku. Perhaps she went too far. You, Midoriya, she said, are you truly her partner in these endeavors? Yes, he said with no hesitation. I'm by her side no matter what. Not today, it seems. He winced internally at that. May is right, I should cultivate potential. Ms. Shield, your inventions do have a chance of becoming something greater, and I will not be made a fool if you did. Though I will say, take in consideration your partners. Izuku felt a chill run down his spine as Momo glared at him. The people you surround yourself with and trust with your heart are the foundations of any ambition to come true. Melissa nodded and Izuku let those words sink. He looked at Melissa and she was only staring right ahead of her. He could see All Might saddened by his inability to comfort his niece. I'll give you one more chance at the festival. Do your best, Momo said. Aizawa disappeared from her view while May patted Melissa on the shoulder. The two were skirted out. Izuku was carrying the broken pieces in the suitcase while Melissa kept her stare up. The blank face of despondence. Do you want to grab some ramen? I'll pay. He sat across from her at the table and she was still silent during the whole trip there. This ramen spot was going to be their celebration spot, but the mood was anything but. Melissa drank her juice while looking at Izuku with a neutral face. You seriously left me behind to deal with those two. Ah, sorry Mel. I got caught up with the quirks of the staff and I got too close, he said bashfully. Melissa didn't respond and he could read her attitude. It was even colder. He bowed his head down. I really am sorry, Melissa. I never intended to leave your side. Melissa angrily chugged the rest of her juice. Izuku, do you still believe in our dream? What? Of course I do. Their dream was to help people. Research and inventions to aid everyone. Of course it was, right? He looked at his hand and saw the tiny sparks between his fingers. One for all. Melissa tried to find the words. Still, this was her best friend. She should be honest with him. Ever since you disappeared and then came back, you've been different. You're working out, you insist on it every chance you get. I didn't stop you since you were attacked. You needed some form of coping, but there's something else. It's like there's something or someone else in your view. Izuku looked at All Might sitting next to her. He closed his eyes for a second to have him disappear. Izuku, this was important and I did it alone. Izuku winced at the word. Alone. That was the one thing the two never wanted to be. Melissa's isolation from her peers due to her father's crimes and Izuku's history of bullying isolated them. They only had each other, and yet, I don't want to be an a-hole. I just want to know if you still want to do this. Of course I do. I suggested we do this when we were about to graduate. Izuku retorted. Then why? She asked. What has your attention? If you want to do more quirk research outside of us, then say it. If you want to be strong, then I can make things to defend ourselves. I can make anything. It's not that. Izuku took a deep breath and stood up. He held out his hand. Come home with me. I need to be honest with you. Something I've hidden from you. Melissa looked at his hand and for the first time hesitated. Izuku saw this and felt even worse. Eventually she did. The two left money on the table and walked off. Izuku could only try to wrangle his thoughts. This was a long time coming. He's kept it quiet for months, but this was something he needed to share. If not her, then who else? The two arrived home and saw a note from Inko. She left to go have dinner with her old friend Mitsuki. Izuku sighed in relief. It would have been harder to tell this secret with his mom around. The two were silent as they walked in. Izuku, what do you need to say? Melissa said. Worry carried in her voice, and that worry scared him. What could they understand from this? I've been holding something back from you. It was something I felt for a long time and I didn't share with you. It wasn't until recently that I finally got the chance to really understand what I wanted. And what I wanted, I didn't know how you of all people would take it. Melissa blinked a few times. Izuku was pouring his heart out, but on what? That can't be what she imagines. How could romance be in the way of their dream? To leave her alone. They were friends. Best friends, bestest friends. What could have made him so confident in wanting to confess such a thing? Was it cause she was mad at him? He continued. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't know what your reaction would be or how it would affect us as partners. I mean, if I was honest, I should have shared this from the beginning. He dropped his torn jacket and Melissa's eyes got wider. Wait, Izuku. No more waiting. You deserve to know the truth. Melissa, I have I can't accept your feelings. Forward to the quirk. The green and blonde paused at the response. Izuku turned bright red. What the hell did you just say? You have a what? Melissa quickly realized what she said and waved her hands frantically. No, I mean, I'm flattered, Izuku, but we've known each other for years, and if nothing happened, then why change things now? We just moved on in. I can't expect us to even move that quickly. We already have 2 beds. We can't get rid of another one. Also, what if we break up? That's I don't like you that way, Izuku said, still blushing. Melissa slowed herself as Izuku seemed just as embarrassed by the prospect. Though maybe a bit of pride was cracked by how fast he said it. I am not saying you're not pretty or awesome to date or anything negative. I just never want you to settle for someone like me anyways. Oh, I mean, not good, because someone like you deserves love, you know. You're a catch. But not for me, Melissa said. Her heart was going crazy. The two friends took a second to catch their breath as Izuku sighs in disbelief. The wind has been taken from his sails. Izuku took a deep breath and exhaled. Actually, Mel, it's something else. Something you wouldn't believe. Melissa watched him roll up his sleeve and pushed a concrete block in front of her. He took a deep breath in and charged up 4% of One for All. Melissa's eyes bugged out. Izuku dusted off his knuckles and took a deep breath. Before you start, please let me explain. He turned and saw Melissa's eyes turn dreary. Huh? You have powers. You have a quirk? How do you have a quirk? Have you been lying this entire time? To me? To your mother? Wait a second, super strength isn't part of your mother or father's quirk line. How is this possible? She didn't realize that she was shaking Izuku the entire time. His mind scrambled. He held up his hand and showed her the watch. It all started with this watch on the day I got kidnapped. Izuku retold his tale. From meeting Eri to being taken into her world and finally inheriting One for All. And Melissa did her best to follow him, especially when he mentioned the Hatsum device. That I agreed and revived my oldest dream. I want to be a hero. You have Unsmite's powers. Melissa nodded and looked at the watch. She noticed the trademark Hatsum signature and felt even more weight on her heart. She was able to create an interdimensional traveling watch. One that her best friend used after getting superpowers. You kept it hidden for months. Izuku finally felt all the guilt crush him. This day was supposed to be a triumph for both of them. Yet he abandoned her at a pivotal point in time. I don't know why, and I'm really sorry for that. This power was new and I had no idea how to control it. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Izuku stopped and saw Melissa's eyes were hidden in the sunset's light. I have designs, research. We've worked with all sorts of things. You really didn't tell me? I haven't done any exploits as a hero yet. I mean, when that sludge villain attacked I fought, but I wasn't strong enough to finish them off. In truth, I've been training just to use the power. I'm not even at the starting line. Melissa was quiet for a minute. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Izuku just stewed in his guilt as Melissa took off her glasses and wiped them clean. Obviously you wouldn't be at the starting line. Izuku didn't even bother blocking that jab. Because you didn't have any support. Melissa dramatically pointed her finger at Izuku, similar to All Might. He could only blink as Melissa crossed her arms, red in the face, and a few pricks of tears in her eyes. I thought in college we learned to rely on each other. That out of anyone in our lives we could rely on, we rely on each other. Melissa. Izuku dared to hope. She took a deep breath. You've been an idiot for too long. You want to be a hero and yet you ignore the very daughter of the man that supported All Might. I'm not some fragile woman. I am Melissa Shield, niece to the greatest hero in the world. And I will help you. Izuku felt tears flow down his face as Melissa cracked her knuckles. Whether it's as my assistant or as your tech support, our dream is the same. To support the world. To save lives. Izuku, our paths haven't diverged. We're still in this together. The sun shined behind Melissa. A near-heroic light. Izuku could see a glimpse of All Might standing in awe at Melissa. She herself felt the heat, the flames of ambition run through her. She held her hand out. I will stand with you no matter what. Izuku clutched his shirt. So much guilt, so much unnecessary pain from hiding this, it all burned away. He reached out and grabbed her hand. The two had work to do. Meanwhile at Yua, Aizawa was eating up his dinner when he felt 2 presences behind him. He tilted his head and gave a Cheshire smile. Ah, the principal and Todoroki, what a surprise. Momo and Shoto didn't seem to match their former teacher's energy. Momo stepped forward. Todoroki stopped by to find out how it went with our new arrivals. The quirkless duo. Aizawa's smile dropped and went back to his food. Oh, that. How did the girl do? Momo shook her head. It seems there's still some areas to hammer out. She's impressive though. Mei was not joking about her talents, yet I'm still concerned about her connections to her past. A clean slate is a rarity in today's society. And Izuku Midoriya, teacher, what did you find? Aizawa looked at them. His students still looked like children in his eyes. The mask of adulthood nearly fused to them, but he was aware who still lurked behind the visage. Todoroki, are you still looking for connections to the cases Aoyama Yuga and Tenya Ida? He saw the tiniest hint of a flinch. No, teacher, those cases have been closed for years. Ida's got nothing to do with this. Momo said. Aizawa cracked his neck and faced his students. You know, humans are designed to recognize patterns, but if it becomes muddled with emotions and ties from the past, it's harder to recognize why that pattern is there. Momo shook her head. Teacher, it's nothing like that. I'm aiding Todoroki in his investigation that's been happening for the past year. Just help us as you've done many times before. Shoto still hasn't said anything. Aizawa thought back to Izuku. A quirkless man with a powerful ability underneath the surface. He couldn't fault his students' suspicions. After all, he taught them and knew what was right or wrong. Honesty was the best policy. I tied him up the second he came within my vicinity. He couldn't do anything. Honesty could also be a detriment if not used carefully. Shoto was not satisfied by that answer. Momo sighed and patted him on the shoulder. Back to the drawing board, Shoto? Maybe I can get Bakugo to come by and aid dash. No, he said firmly. I don't have time to ponder with our classmates. I need to return to my father. We're going to get ready for a press release about my return to hero work. Aizawa's face scrunched a bit. Shoto's been shown running around like a new pony in a circus. Everyone wanted to see him and either cheer him or boo him. He knows the vultures in journalism are ready to try this man. Momo saw how restrained he was when he mentioned his father. Endeavor is touted as the greatest hero in history. Shoto was next on the board. They watched him leave, disappearing into the dark hallways of UA. Aizawa turned to Momo. Principal, are you and the rest of the class aiding in Todoroki's investigation? What have you found? Momo clenched her fists. I don't know, but something feels off. It has been for months. Have you ever felt that something was coming? Considering the circumstances for his newest student, Aizawa felt something in the air. The two staff members watched the sun set and the dark of night approach. A cold feeling running down their backs. And someone watching them through a telescope.